till 3:10 for the poetry of it. No one watching on a rewatch will appreciate that anyway.
Yeah,
We'll start when we plan to
maybe
start.
we can make it go 3 hours and 10 minutes.
That's something.
It's a
There's an
goal.
idea there.
We could work towards that.
Yeah, we'll aim for that.
I think there's 3 hours and I could talk for 3 hours and 10 minutes about these two movies. I think
I
that.
think so.
Yeah.
I think we can. It'd be probably a temptation not to talk about them for longer, actually. Hello, fine people in the chat as you roll in. Hope you're doing well. We're talking about 310 to Yuma and 310 to Yuma today, kind of doing a similar thing we did last time we streamed when we talked about True Grit
And True Grit.
True Grit,
And also
yes,
Supergirl.
and also Supergirl.
Somehow Supergirl returned. We're gonna talk about maybe it'll come up. Maybe Supergirl drew some inspiration from 310 to Yuma. Who knows? Maybe you'll just have to wait around and find out.
You can wait a whole 5 seconds to find out that the answer is no.
No,
Not really.
Not really. It has
Nah, not
nothing
really
to
at
do with
all.
either of these movies.
We can while we wait for people to roll in, we can point out how funny it is that Supergirl has only made $110 million at the
Oh,
box office on a
damn.
$170 million budget. That's pretty funny.
That is pretty funny.
Couldn't have happened.
What are the projections now for
Oh,
losses? Has it climbed? The last time I saw it was up to almost 200 million for projected losses.
I haven't seen the projected losses, but they're pretty big, pretty sizable. We've had some pretty big. It's funny because even Supergirl as a sort of monumental flop is also going to be overshadowed. Maybe not overshadowed, but like no one's going to talk about it anymore because now they're talking about
The
the
Odyssey.
Moana live action.
Yeah, I forgot
and
about
how
that,
that's
yeah.
going to flop. You want to hear some fun things about that?
I would love to. Please.
Let me get the exact numbers. Okay, Moana 2026 live action remake. I want to find the budget first because I don't want to get this wrong. Yes. Okay. The Moana live action remake had a budget of $250 million.
What? Oh boy.
250 million for the Moana live action
Holy
remake.
shit.
That's the same price as the Odyssey.
What are we doing? Why, like,
That's
why are we here?
That's a
Oh.
good question. So obviously its first weekend isn't over yet, but like it only has 18 million right now. Let that sink in.
That's not 250.
No, it's quite a bit less than that. Yeah, it's like projecting $43 million opening weekend for a movie that cost 250. Hoo boy, what a flop. That's so funny.
Yeah, that's rough, man. That is
So
nice
glad to
to
hear it.
know, though. Yeah, like because one of the prevailing narratives on EFAP has basically been that since the Lilo and Stitch remake made $1 billion fucking dollars, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, obviously, all of these live action remakes, as they get made, are going to just rake in the cash. And it's quite encouraging to see that as it turns out, no.
No, not really.
No.
I think, it's funny. I think what it is, like a better theory of mine for when these sequels and remakes, especially the family movies, when they're going to do well and when they aren't, really kind of comes down to just families are going to go take their kids to see whatever's out. You know what I mean? And they're going to take their kids to see whatever the best thing or most familiar thing out currently is, right?
Yeah.
And right now, that's Toy
Minions?
Story 5 and maybe
and
Minions.
Monsters.
Minions and Monsters. I don't even know what number in the
of
franchise
Minions
that
and
is.
Monsters.
Why didn't they call it that? That would be so funny. You can put the "of" really small on the poster, but "of Minions and Monsters" would be such a funny title. I can't believe they didn't do that. Let's see how that's doing. I imagine that's doing pretty well because those Minions, they're strong character
crushing.
design.
My boss walked up to me the other day, a man in his mid-40s, and he was like, "I love the Minions, dude. I love it when they do that banana thing. Cracks me up every time." I'm like, I'm a simple man. Minion says banana, I laugh. you know what, bro?
I can see the appeal. They're strong character designs, and they make goofy, silly, nonsense noises, and that's
yeah,
sure. What's
Sure.
not to, what's not to love? It's doing pretty well so far. It's got 193 million dollars at the box office. I think Toy Story 5. I don't think it's gonna hit a billion, but it's doing quite well. Yeah, 788 million. So like that's the thing. That's the family movie that's out right now that looks, I guess, the best to the normal family. So that's the one that's doing really well. Moana, the live action remake, looks like crap, man. It looks like sad and like
Well, didn't Moana
desaturated and lame.
2 kind of suck too? Like that
I
didn't
didn't
do
watch it.
very
I haven't
well.
watched any of the Moana movies,
Hold on, I'm
so
gonna.
I couldn't tell you how good it was, but it made a billion. Moana 2 did. So
Oh, did it actually? Oh
yes,
shit,
it did.
yeah. Oh man, I thought. Wow.
No, it did. It did very well for them.
Okay.
Because the first one was really well liked. I didn't see it, but it was well liked. So that makes sense. Yeah, the first one made 643 million. Anyway, yeah, some interesting flops happening this year. Supergirl's one, Moana live action appears to be flopping pretty hard, and that's pretty funny. Um, Disclosure Day by Steven Spielberg.
Big
That lost
flop.
money
Yeah.
too, which is pretty funny.
Made
That
less
didn't
than The
look
Devil
very
Wears
good.
Prada 2. It's got a sting for old Steven.
Now the big question will be how the Odyssey does. I decided to go out on a limb on Twitter and make some predictions about it. So we'll see how well I do. But basically, the short version is that I think the Odyssey probably makes just enough to break even, enough that people who don't really understand the finances of movies will think it was a huge success because wow, that's a big number and bigger than budget. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's making $1 billion. I don't think it's going to do well enough that it'll be a massive success. I think it'll sort of, you know, be a moderate success or maybe just barely not break even. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the range I'm thinking. That's like what, 650 to 750,
Yeah.
100 million. That's sort
Yeah.
of what I would predict. I would like to see it flop because oh boy,
I,
I am every new decision, every new piece of information that comes out about the Odyssey is driving me insane. I hate it, and I hope it fails, but I feel like it'll just barely
well,
do
you see,
okay.
Jamie, as Lupita Nyong'o said famously, that when you read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you'll notice that very little time is spent on the
Screen time,
perspectives of women.
specifically
Very
screen
little
time,
screen
which is
time is
funny.
spent on the perspectives of women, and then everybody in the room just nods. They nod along. Nobody in that room has cracked either book. They're just nodding along as she says her piece. Yeah, tell
You
us
know what's
more. Tell us more.
what's funny about that clip where she's like, because the question was if you could talk to Homer, what would you say? And it's like, I would lecture him about feminism. It's like, cool.
Wow.
Thanks, Lupita. You're a real one. Just the arrogance is astounding to me. Because a lot of people are like, oh, this is proof that she hasn't read the Odyssey. And it's like, well, I did read an interview where she claimed to have read the Odyssey, and I think actually that's worse. I
Yeah.
think she has read
Well,
it,
she
and
might
this
have
is
read
still her
the
attitude.
Emily Willis or Emily
Wilson.
Wilson translation.
Yeah, Emily Willis. Yeah.
Emily Willis
I
translating the Odyssey
yeah,
famously.
the like obviously nakedly feminist retelling that she
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so annoyed at this movie because ugh. Well, we'll save that for another time. But I hope it flops. I would like to see it flop. I would feel good about that.
Silly,
Anyway,
silly raccoon 121 made a good joke in the chat. I'm convinced she believes Homer was the bald dad on The Simpsons. For some reason, you guys must have done something wrong because you're not showing up on screen today. I'm hoping that OBS will forgive your sins. But
yeah, what's up with that?
yeah, don't
What'd you
know.
guys do?
What'd you get? Whatever you guys got up
Yes,
to this week,
you've been
you
naughty.
fucked it. So
Yeah. But check out this really cool image. Look at that aura from the original 310 Yuma. That's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about the original 1957 310 to Yuma and the remake from 2007 of 310 to Yuma. Yeah, kind of like we did with True Grit last time we talked. Last time you joined us, that's what we did. We talked about those two. We compared and contrasted them and sort of pitted them against each other to see which one was the better movie. And believe it or not, I believe, and I think Hugh joins me in saying that the remake of True Grit's actually better than the original. It's kind of rare that it
yeah,
is. It's shorter and better than the original, which is kind of
Definitely
unheard
more
of,
faithful
actually.
to the book version. It feels like the egos of players like John Wayne did not interfere in the production of the 2010 remake of True Grit. I think a lot of that could be chalked up to the fact that John Wayne he don't want to be the guy who dies at the end of the movie. He can't be the guy who dies a sad old man. Um,
Now he
and
has to rear up on his horse and do a freeze frame. Yeah.
do a freeze frame as he jumps. You can teach an old horse new tricks, pilgrim, and jumps over a fence. And you know what? Good for him. Good for him. That's
Yeah.
fine.
I
We
do
love
like
it.
John Wayne in
I
that
like
movie.
him.
I think he's good. I think he's good. He's one of those actors. There's a similar one. Maybe this will be controversial, actually, but one of those actors who doesn't have a lot of range necessarily, but that doesn't mean they're
Hmm.
not really good.
Yeah, yeah. There's hey, there. That's a good connection.
Yeah,
That'll be a topic of
maybe we'll
discussion.
talk about one of those actors
I,
today. Do you want to do that now,
I
Hugh?
guess we could. I mean, that is my question, right? Because I was like, and I don't want anybody to get me wrong here, right? I like Russell Crowe a lot. I'm always happy to see Russell Crowe in movies. I just struggle to think of movies where he's ever not just sort of done the Russell Crowe thing. Um, I'm
Yeah.
not convinced he's very good at accents. He can do Maximus
No, he's not.
and he can
He's not
do
good at
Australian
accents.
because he's Australian. Um, I
Accents aren't his strong suit, and that's
yeah,
fine, And I think Russell Crowe, I think he's a great actor. He wouldn't be someone I would point to for having a lot of range necessarily.
I
Uh,
wouldn't say so. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be. I might be wrong. I'm just struggling to remember whether or not I've ever seen a Russell Crowe movie where he's like blended into the character to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, wow, great. That's really
oh, I
yeah.
almost forgot it was Russell
I
Crowe.
almost forgot that was Russell Crowe for a minute. I love the
No,
guy.
but yeah, I like him a lot too. I like LA Confidential. I like him in 310 to Yuma. I don't like his accent very much, unfortunately. It's the remake of 310 to Yuma is Russell Crowe and Christian Bale, neither of whom are American and neither of whom are doing the best American accent. I could forgive that if everything else about the movie was good and even great, but it's not the best thing about it. So I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, Hugh. Let's talk about the 310 to Yuma movies. Let's talk about the original first.
Yeah.
Broad strokes. What do you think about 310 to Yuma 1957?
I loved 310 to Yuma 1957. This was my first time watching it, and I just could not look away. Excellent overall. Might be a masterpiece. I think I would be comfortable saying that it is. Maybe one of the best villain performances I've ever seen from coming from Glenn Ford here. He's so intimidating and charming and scary and just like it's like yeah, it's fantastic. I loved this. I loved this movie. Absolutely loved it. Everything I love about old westerns is working so well here. Just nailing every aspect. Fantastic.
I suppose before I jump in and say, why don't you tell us now, in short form, what do you think of the 310 to Yuma remake?
Ooh, boy, I wasn't a big fan. I had never seen that one either. There are things I like about it. Most of them are kind of like remnants from the original. There's little performances from some of the newer guys. I love Ben Foster. I like seeing him
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
in stuff. I don't know that anything they added to the new one makes it a better movie. In fact, I would
No, and
say
they changed quite a bit.
in most aspects, what they added makes it worse.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. So first, the original 310 to Yuma, I agree. I think it's a masterpiece. I love it. I think it's incredible, pretty much top to bottom. There's very little I would complain about or change if I could. I think it's excellent. It's got a really strong character writing, a lot of really interesting, distinct, and likable characters. Even the villains are interesting in a way. I think it's really subtle. I think it's the kind of movie you mentioned this when you messaged me. that it's like that you could tell just by watching it that it's the kind of movie Quentin Tarantino loves.
Yes.
And I think very that is very much true because what 310 to Yuma really excels at doing is setting up a scenario, and then we get to the main scenario of the movie at the halfway point, and then it's just a slow kind of ticking time bomb waiting for the finale to sort of erupt, right? It's a suspense movie, really, more than anything. And I think it's excellent. I think it's very, very well directed. The music is just like miraculous. It's so good. We talked about this with True Grit because the 67 or 69
69
69
version had
yeah,
it
69 True
opens with a
Grit.
song with the movie
Yeah,
title in the name. This does the same
that
thing.
isn't
This
yes.
one slaps. This one's
Oh my
so
God,
good.
does it? It's incredible. And like many westerns of the time, it opens with a title song, and then the melody of the title song sort of like worms its way through the score in various iterations and scenarios depending on the mood. Unbelievably good music, very like big and dramatic and in a really good way. But also, importantly, many scenes in the movie play with no music at all, and we go quite honestly like long periods of time with no music also to like really sit in the silence and anticipation of what is to come and with the finale of the movie. Great performances by Glenn Ford as the villain and Van
Heflin,
Heflin,
yes.
Heflin, who has
Friend
been
of the
in a number of
pod,
friend of the
friend
pod.
of the pod, friend of the channel, Gunman's Walk fame, excellent
Yes.
actor, very underrated as Topaz Dude says. Now this is a great question from him. Which is the better Van Heflin performance, this or Gunman's Walk? I would probably have
Um,
to hand it to this, but I do think he's very good in
oh,
Gunman's
he's
Walk.
so good
He's
in
so
both.
good.
They're very different, so it's a little hard to say. Like he's a bit more vulnerable at the end, finally, of Gunman's Walk. I think. I don't know. They're both. They're similar, honest. Like, okay, they're different in terms of who the character is, but like in terms of how he handles it and how he plays it, they're kind of similar. Um, yeah, I don't know. I can't pick one. I like this story a bit more. This story is a bit more heroic and noble.
Yeah.
Gunman's Walk is a bit more tragic, so I just think I like this one more. But his performance is excellent in both. Very underrated actor. But all the actors in this original movie are very, very good. Like I mentioned, the music, the cinematography, and the blocking is beautiful. It was made in 1957, which is after the point that it would have been technologically necessary to shoot in black and white. So I don't actually know if they shot in black and white for budget reasons or just for aesthetic reasons,
Oh,
but
but
it's a
it is
gorgeous
such
movie.
a gorgeous. Yeah, I one of the
The
things I
lighting is,
almost
yeah,
messaged you was I want to make a black and white western now, just by
yeah,
watching.
right.
It's
It's so
so
good.
good. It's
It's
beautiful.
excellent. If you have not seen 310 to Yuma, the original 1957, it is a must watch. I insist that you watch it. We are going to spoil it today, and I don't want to spoil it for you because I think you'll really appreciate going into it not knowing what's going to happen,
Yeah,
right?
I think going in
It's
blind
that good.
is one of the best favors you could do for yourself if you haven't seen it.
Yes. It is such a good movie, man. Can't recommend it highly enough. It might be somewhere in my list of favorite movies now, for sure.
Oh yeah, it
Now,
easily made its way into my top five. Sure.
excellent. So, then it was remade in 2007 by James Mangold, with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. Russell Crowe as the villain, and Christian Bale as the hero. Um, and it's not as good. It's
It's not. So the best way I can describe it is if you have been around the channel for a while, you might remember a little video I made, little meme a while ago, where I teased the creators of a YouTube video who had decided to action up the Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader fight from A New Hope.
oh right.
Um, the remake of 310 to Yuma is to the original as that fight sequence is to Star Wars 1977. It's we've added a bunch more explosions and action set pieces that
Violence and
yeah,
yeah,
and violence and maybe
stunts
even a
and
bit of social commentary along the
oh
way
lord.
that I think is just all incredibly unnecessary. Like fun in a vacuum, I think you could say,
Sure.
but especially since the story sticks so closely to what the original is, it really just sort of detracts from how great the tension and the buildup was in the original. Yeah, like
Yes.
it's just yeah, it's the louder, more explosive,
More
more
immature,
immature.
less subtle. Yeah, I there are things to like about it. So let's start here. So I saw this movie first. I saw this movie on like Comcast on demand back in the day with my dad. And we watched it and we're like, yeah, that was pretty good. There's some good stuff in there. Yeah, we liked it. We didn't love it. But we're both like fairly impressed with the movie. There's a lot of good stuff in there, right? And I didn't rewatch it again until like a few months ago. I watched it on a plane because my girlfriend hadn't seen it. And watching it again, still hadn't seen the original at this point. Watching it again, I'm like, man, we're doing a lot of stuff that feels like we're kind of like, forgive the vulgarity, sucking off the villain here. Where we are kind of riding his dick a little too hard for my liking, considering how evil he is. And there are other things that frustrated me about it. And I was like, I bet you the original's better. And then I watched it, and I was right. The 310 to Yuma remake is just a step down in basically every way. Even the cinematography, even the technical. I guess maybe the action is better choreographed in some ways,
Yes,
but
you could argue that, but the problem really is that it ruins elements of the story that they then try to keep from the original one because they want this to be, they want it to be the original one, but like spiced up a little bit. And the problem
yeah,
is that once
it's
you
dumbed
really,
down.
it's really dumbed down, and once you start thinking about, like we're gonna have plot points that really kind of get ruined by the idea that action set pieces like this are happening. And
Yeah.
I'll explain more of what I mean as we get into it later, but it's just overall a letdown. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think where you find there are whole added scenes and sequences that are not in the original, that are not doing much to elevate the story at all, and are only really detracting from it in many cases. But to the degree that it sticks to the story of the original, it is changing all the really fine details in really bizarre ways.
odd.
I guess in mostly in a way like to be different and justify itself. Like, there's a scene in the original where this isn't much of a spoiler, where the villain is handcuffed and they're eating dinner and he asks the hero of the story to cut up his steak for him, and he doesn't do it. Then in the remake, they're like, oh, what if he did do it? It's like, okay, I mean, we'll talk about the effect that
Yeah.
has and what it says about his character, but just every little detail is changed, and they really add up, and they completely like they compound on each other and completely change the characters in the end,
Yeah.
essentially, and not for the better, I would say.
So, because I've started this discussion in the chat here, I feel the need to just elaborate a little bit on what exactly it is that I mean with the Vader and Obi-Wan fight, the original version, as opposed to the YouTube version. Um, so yeah, the fight choreography in the original one is very like bare bones doesn't even like it's barer than bare bones. It's incredibly low key. Like someone said, they tap the lightsabers together a couple times like fondue forks and then it's over. But the difference is that you when you are watching it, you inherently kind of feel that these are two characters with history. You don't know what it is, but you know that there is a tension between them, and they're each sort of trying to prod the other's defenses and find a weakness. But you can tell that they're kind of evenly matched, and they don't know. Neither one can gain the upper hand or the advantage. So they're changing up stances. They're being very defensive because it feels like extremely consequential. One mistake could end either of them. You can feel Vader's begrudging respect for Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan's genuine sort of like wise fear of what Vader is capable of. In the remade version on YouTube, it's all about like, oh well, in the battle on Mustafar they were flipping around and running through floating through down a lava river, and they were jumping and they twirled their lightsabers a bunch. So we need to have Vader like throw fuel tanks at Obi-Wan, and we need to have him like use all these force powers that got added in the prequels, and like have all this crazy explosions, and they practically just destroy half of the Death Star as they're running around doing
Yeah.
this fight. And yes, the choreography is good. I'm not arguing that the choreography is
I
poor.
mean,
They did a good job choreographing that kind of fight scene, but it doesn't add anything to the history of the characters really. It's just more exciting visually. It's eye candy. 310 to
yes.
Yuma does the same. So the big example that I'm going to give here is right at the beginning. The whole plot kicks off when Ben Wade, played by Glenn Ford and Russell Crowe, robs a stagecoach. And in the first one, in the original, 12 armed men descend on the stagecoach, which has got maybe 3 or 4 people in it, right? And they all realize that if they move, like these guys, it's Ben Wade, he's a notorious outlaw, he will kill them, right? So they're all kind of calm. They're not reaching for their guns. It's a tense situation where you can feel that if one mistake gets made, something bigger could go down. All they're there for is the money, and that's what they end up taking. But something goes wrong where one guy who is the driver holds one of the gang, tries to hold one of the gang hostage for leverage. Ben Wade shoots him, and then shoots his gang member, and then shoots the carriage driver, right? In the remake, the 12 men descend on the stagecoach, which is armed to the teeth with a Gatling gun mounted on the back, and multiple mercenaries who are in the stagecoach waiting for them so that they can basically try to outdrive them and make it to the town before these guys can steal their loot, right? One of the guys on the stagecoach notices that one of Ben Wade's gang has a bunch of dynamite on his horse, so he shoots the bag of dynamite and the horse explodes like a car in Fast and Furious. The Gatling gun massacres like 5 people. It takes out a good portion of the Ben Wade gang because obviously it has to, otherwise it's kind of useless. So it's a chase scene, and it's guns firing, and it's explosions, and it's horses falling, and people dying and everything, and it completely ruins the tension of the moment later where the guy jumps out and tries to hold one of them hostage to like get away. Everything is screwed at this point. Like it's very, very different tones when
Yes.
you get to that.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're 100% right there. I think in the same way that you could say that the fight choreography in that scene in A New Hope is like maybe a little lacking, like you could improve that for sure. But that what they did in that big CGI spectacle fight scene is obviously worse. I think you could say that some of the shootout scenes in 310 to Yuma maybe could be staged in a way that's slightly more exciting. Slightly. They're good. Don't get me wrong, but like action movie techniques did improve in like the 70s and 80s from where they were before. That is like undeniably true. And I think maybe you could spruce up some of the final shootout in this movie. Um However, what 310 to Yuma does is obviously worse. And like not just because it's over the top and unsubtle and ruins the tension and all that sort of stuff, but like because it's so extravagant, it what they have to do in the fight scenes actually does undermine who the characters are, for example.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that they are kind of analogous in that way. In short, the 310 to Yuma remake is a step down in basically every way. I wouldn't describe it as a bad movie though.
No,
I
and
think
I
it's
think
like pretty mid.
if I had seen it before I saw the original, I'd probably be like, that was all right.
Yeah.
That wasn't bad, right?
Yeah.
Watching the original and then pretty much back to back going into the new one, it was just entirely like, oh damn, like, that's I don't like any of that.
Yeah, like when you see an adaptation of a book you haven't read and you're like, "That was pretty good," and then you read the book and you're like, "Oh, that was actually pretty not great, actually." I think the 310 to Yuma remake is probably like a 5 out of 10 movie, you
Yeah,
know? It's
yeah, I would
it's
give it
got some
that.
memorable moments, and there are some things about it that are interesting. Uh, Overall, it's I wouldn't recommend it too highly because there is the original, which is something like a 9 out of 10. It's that good.
Yeah,
So,
it's shorter.
it
It's yeah, it's shorter. It's more
it's
mature.
more
It's
tense,
more
the
tense.
characters are more interesting and more
The
likable.
drama
Because
is set up better, just
yes.
overall, because we knew how to do that in Western movies back in the day. You know.
Oh, we sure did. So, yeah, overall, because we're going to spoil them now, the 310 to Yuma 1957 is a must watch. Go watch it before you hear us spoil it. That's my recommendation. Or go watch it after we spoil it, if you just want to stick around and have some fun. But, 310 to Yuma 2007, it's okay.
Yeah,
It's all right. Like if you like you if like me, if you watch it before you watch the original, you're like, yeah, there's some good stuff in there. Everything that's good about it, though, is what they're taking from the original.
yeah,
So let's
and
talk about
executed infinitely better in the original as well. Yeah,
yes, I would say so. So now we're gonna get into spoiler territory. Let's talk about the overall plot of both movies. The overall plot of both movies is that Ben Wade is a notorious outlaw who robs a stagecoach, right? And then he gets caught in part by Dan Evans, who is a farmer. This is out in Arizona in something like the 1880s. It is not too specific what year it is, but roughly that time period. He is just a farmer. Things are not going so great for Dan and his family. There's been a drought, so he's a cattle farmer, cattle rancher, and so his cattle are thirsty and he's not doing so well and he could use the money. Things aren't exactly going his way. Then he finds the opportunity to be one of the guys that helps bring Ben Wade to justice. And because so they caught him kind of separately from his gang of outlaws who are very dangerous and much better armed and more ruthless than they are. So they're going to try and bring him to justice, go get him sent, to a town where he can be tried and put in prison while avoiding his outlaws that are trying to rescue him, right? That's the overall thing. So what they end up doing once they capture him is they take him to a nearby town called Contention, which is
great
a
name.
real town in Arizona and a great name narratively. What a strong choice. So they go to Contention and there they wait for the train to arrive that will take them to Yuma, Arizona, which is way further west, right on the border of like California and Mexico in the western part of the state. So they have to sit there at a hotel and hope that they can put him on a train to Yuma before his gang of outlaws can come and free him and maybe kill them all. And so as the tension is mounting, as the clock is ticking, as it's getting closer and closer, the outlaw gang shows up and then they're trying to put together a posse that will, help them fight off the gang, but then people are dropping like flies because they don't think it's worth it,
And
you know.
that we'll talk about how that's handled between the.
We'll talk about all of it, yeah. Everything's handled worse, basically. But in general, what I like so much about the original is like it's a sort of like tense ticking time bomb. Very obviously
It's
a
like a
big
Black Ops
inspiration.
thing, right? Like it's
Yeah,
almost
kind
like
of.
it's a secret mission, right? We have to make sure that we give ourselves, because we know we can't fight them head on, the outlaw
Yes.
gang. So we have to make sure that we give ourselves the best pot. Like we're gonna sneak through. We're gonna sneak by and make them think he's going one place and then secretly take him another place. And we're
Yeah.
gonna, we got to be very quiet
There's
about
some
it. Yeah,
espionage. Yeah.
yeah. There's a almost like a spy thriller element to it.
A little bit, yeah.
It's really really interesting and unique of a story. Yeah, not your typical cop. Yeah, like white hat, black hat kind of thing. And that's
Yeah,
reflected in the
exactly.
way the characters are written as well, right? Because Ben Wade in both of them like a little less so in the new one as opposed to the original. But Ben Wade, he's a ruthless, portrayed as a ruthless, ruthless outlaw, but he is bound by a code of honor, and he has this sort of admirability and and charm and charisma, like just natural aura that
Yeah.
really makes him like you can understand why the gang of outlaws is so willing to throw everything at getting him back, right?
Yes.
And you can understand how he manages to operate in the world because people like him. You know, like he is
Yeah.
an outlaw, but yeah, he
He's a
is
smooth talker
smooth.
and
Yeah.
everything. And well, see, the big thing here when it comes to Ben Wade specifically is that in the remake, they want him to be kind of suave and a smooth talker and have aura as well. And they mostly do a good job of that. Russell Crowe is a very charismatic actor, and they give him a lot of charismatic things to do. However, they also make him more of a psychopath, which
Yeah.
does kind of cut against the fact that we're supposed
Oh, it
to.
makes it so difficult to like, so that
Yeah.
his interactions with other people that aren't our heroes are just like much harder to believe, right? So like,
Yeah.
one of the big moments, the first moment that you'll notice it is when in the original one, when Glenn Ford's Ben Wade shows up to the bar and seduces the bartender girl. There is there's a lot of chemistry. There's a almost like romantic subplot between the two of them that he exploits and just uses to his advantage to sort of get what he wants from her, right?
Yeah.
And he's charming, he's very charismatic, he's very like just he seduces her in the actual aspect of the word, right? Like he offers
Yes.
her so much, like he spins these tales that are designed to get her to give him what he wants. In the Russell Crowe performance, it's much gruffer. It's almost they almost go a little bit rapier with it.
They do.
But they
It's
do and they
more of a,
don't,
like,
you
have
know.
s it's more of a, like, have sex with me and bad things won't happen to you kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's more
Like,
that, but then like they also don't lean into that really because she's still kind of into the whole like they kind of
yeah,
try to play it as if he did the Glenn Ford thing where he was actually just charming and instead of intimidating.
yeah.
It's a strange choice to make him that much. So they make him less virtuous, they make him less charming, they make him less, they really try to play up the intimidation factor. But by doing that and then trying to like ride how cool he is, like wow, man, he's just such a badass. Like ironically, they managed to make him much less interesting of a character. So like they're really riding him the remake, but they've
It's
actively
not
taken
having the
steps.
desired
Yeah,
effect.
they've actively
No.
taken steps to reduce the ability to make him that kind of character.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give a little quick example because the dialogue in the original is very, very good. A quick shout out to Elmore Leonard, the guy who wrote the short story that the both movies are based on. We mentioned Quentin Tarantino because this is obviously a movie Quentin Tarantino really likes. It was already pointed out dutifully by Topaz Dude in the chat that Elmore Leonard wrote the novel Rum Punch that Jackie Brown is that is adapted from. That's kind of a fun little connection there. But the dialogue is very, very good. And when he's seducing the barmaid in the 57 movie, there's a really fun line he says where he says, I was in San Francisco once. I knew a girl there. She was a sea captain's daughter, too. And she had the greenest eyes. I used to look deep into her eyes, and they just change colors, get all fiery and green, all the colors of the sea. Funny how a woman's eyes will change color at nighttime, right?
Yeah, and
And
so the reason
then
that he does that in the original one, because we've skipped over a little bit of the context there, right? Is like they've brought him to Van Heflin's house, and they're having dinner before they move on to take him to contention under the cover of darkness, right?
Oh, sorry. Was I reading from the dinner time scene?
Well, that is from the dinner time scene. Yeah.
No, I was trying to find the barmaid one.
Oh, the barmaid one. He asks her like, "Don't I know you? Did you?" And he asks her, "Don't I know you?" And she goes, "You're basically like I haven't, you know." Do you? You know, I have no idea. And he asks her a few places. You know, he names some places that he's been, some like seedy bars in other towns, and eventually he lands on one. He says, "Did you used to work for a blind Irishman in
Oh,
this town?"
okay,
And
I
yeah,
messed it up because I was looking for the line we're talking about green eyes, but in this scene, it's blue eyes, right?
yeah,
So, it's like, "Do you ever sing anymore?" And he says, "Hey, you look kinda skinny." And she says, "I feel skinny." So, "That's alright. I don't mind a skinny girl just so she has blue eyes to make up for it." And he says, "Do you got blue eyes?" And she says, "Brown." He says, "That's alright. They don't have to be blue." And then he kisses her,
yeah.
right? It's a great little moment,
Yeah, but he
you
like
know?
he fishes the incredible thing about that, right, is that he fishes for like he knows that she's kind of like that he's his charm, his natural charm is working on her, right? So he fishes for some aspect of shared history that they have, and then he immediately just like exploits that to make it seem as if it's like it's almost like he's making it seem to her as if they're star-crossed lovers who, you know, like, because he can recognize that she doesn't belong in this little podunk town. She's, you know, the pretty one who works at the at the bar. She's been around before. She's, you know, trying to find her place in the world, and he fishes around to find how he can what he can say to like act like he's offering that to her, right?
Yes.
And it's so smart, and we're going to see that later again in the kitchen table scene, the dinner scene that you were referencing before. um the Russell Crowe one just sort of shows up and like kind of intimidates her into sex a little bit. Like they have the same lines, sort of. They skip ahead to the "Did you used to work for a blind Irishman" line, right? But he doesn't turn on the charm to try to get something out of her. He's just kind of making himself bigger and almost scarier. And
Yeah.
it's just not the same. Yeah, like
It's not like you can't like, that couldn't work and that doesn't work in its own way, but it says something different about his character, and when you add up all of these changes, it's definitely less interesting.
yeah.
He's more of a brute, he's more of a psychopath, he's more of a tyrant, which also sort of this actually does come up, especially when it comes to, like, having control over his gang. Which in the original, there's no one who's defecting, right? There's no one who's even threatening to like, "Oh, maybe I should run this gang instead of Ben Wade." That never comes up in the original. But I think
No.
partly they realized that they've made these kind of changes, and now there is a member of his gang who thinks that like maybe we shouldn't go rescue him. Maybe I could run this gang instead. And his number two guy, Russell Crowe's number two guy, who in the remake is like kind of in love with him. He's
Yep.
he's very much gay coded and infatuated with him. And he is sort of like, no, he's done. You're forgetting all he's done for us and all that sort of stuff. He's like, Ben Wade, he's kind of in love with and infatuated with Ben Wade, so he's like trying to fight to keep the gang together, which
Jay,
is only something you need to do because you've made Ben Wade in this movie more of a tyrant and more of a bully and
and
more of a
more of a, yeah,
psychopath.
psychopath. So one of Jay Jameson says finesse is the term. Modern writers don't have finesse. That's a great word for it. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
true.
But so as what we were just talking about, right? Like we've made Ben Wade in the remake more psychopathic evil. Like we're gonna watch him kill multiple people by hand throughout the
Yes.
remake, right? Very, very important change because we don't actually see him kill anybody except for that first stagecoach guy at the beginning
Yes.
of the movie. We see him kill one of the members of his own gang and the guy who's holding him hostage, right? But somehow, even though we don't see that, Glenn Ford's version of the character is so much scarier than Russell Crowe's character,
Yes.
even though like Russell Crowe's character is the type of guy who will, you know, steal a fork from a dinner table and stab you in the throat with it when you fall asleep.
Repeatedly, like over and
Repeatedly.
over and over, yeah.
Yeah.
Rather
It's
sadistically.
it
Yeah.
yeah, it is a strange thing that by trying to make him almost more of like a slasher movie villain, right? Like you've managed to make him less terrifying than he was when
Yeah.
he was
'Cause
more of
there's
a
all the
silent,
subtlety is gone.
subtle
Yeah.
operator. Yeah.
We have a couple super chats. Double Dog, thank you very much. It says, when are y'all covering Unforgiven? Just make sure to have Mahler on when you cover it. It's apparently one of his favorite movies. Definitely mine. Unforgiven is on the list.
It
You
sure
know,
is.
we're on our Western arc. We've been watching a lot more Westerns, thoroughly enjoying ourselves doing so. Unforgiven is definitely on the list because I still haven't seen it. So
Oh, that's going to
I'm
be
excited to watch it
exciting.
at some point, and I would like to get Mueller on for that because he's a big fan of it. Heard. Uh, Brandon Lucas, thank you very much. Says Odyssey would be close to 1 billion if it was good. I haven't seen the movie, but yeah, Lupita and Elliot, Armour, Emily Wilson. There's so many things you could add on to that little list right there.
Tom
I
Holland,
think
even unfortunate as it
the
is, the
dialogue,
dialogue. If I was Greek back in the day, I would say dad. So I don't really see a
dude,
problem with saying dad
it's
instead of
it's
father.
the. I mean, I know he's an actor and he's defensive and he's just trying to reach for something to justify it, but that is an awful argument, my dude.
When you sent that to me, we're gonna diverge real quick to talk about this because
Go
this
for it.
pissed me off so much when I read it. Right, I want anybody in the chat to imagine you are watching Game of Thrones, right? You're watching Game of Thrones, and Robb Stark is talking to Ned, and Robb Stark walks up to him and says, "Hey, Dad, how are you doing today?" Instead of saying something like, "Father, you know, Father, what news have you brought?" Yeah, something like that, right? Imagine in any medieval fantasy epic or any like ancient epic like that, somebody just starts saying like, "What up, Dad?"
I mean, literally.
That would throw you off a little bit, throw you out of the immersion of the overall scene, wouldn't it? Just a little
So, I
bit.
mean, I just watched another trailer for the Odyssey on TV when I was watching the World Cup. It was a shorter one, and so there wasn't barely any dialogue in it. And so there's just it's like he's like cranking a pulley or something, and so the sound of the rope is like being used to justify all this quick cutting or whatever. Anyway, finally, all these quick shots, we're cutting around. Oh, look at the spectacle! Look how amazing! Oh, it looks so good. And then at the very end, it just cuts to Matt Damon. He goes, "Let's go home." It's like, dude, like it's like a punchline. It's like it's a punchline how modern and American he sounds. It doesn't work. Man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wasserman says
but
papa. All right, now here's the thing, right? Even papa would work better than dad. That's like it would be a little odd maybe, but it would still be better. Like
when I was criticizing this on Twitter, someone I forget who responded like, honestly, if the dialogue was entirely made up of Zoomerisms, that would have more artistic merit than what they did. And I
yeah,
agree with that.
I agree with
At
that
least
too.
that would be funny.
Yeah.
Man, but to your point, I think if the movie is really really good, that it's making over 1 billion, right? Because sure, like absolutely, why wouldn't it, right? But I don't think I mean it's going to do really well opening weekend because everyone who is convinced themselves it's going to be great is going to see it opening weekend. But I don't know, man. I think that second week drop off is going to be steep. That's what I think. But
You,
we shall see.
silly raccoon. You bigots are okay with dragons, but a Honda in the lot is too much. Exactly, right? Like I'm okay with general premise, but internal logic throws you off. Damn, man, what a bigot! How you just need to learn to turn your brain off and enjoy things. Oh
Yeah.
my God, yeah.
Man, it's just all the dumb arguments are piling up too because it's recently, very recently, there was some Variety headline about like, oh, how the creators of the Moana live action remake worked very closely with like historians and experts in sort of what 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 culture are they? I can't remember
Greek.
already. No, no, no. For Moana, like
Oh,
Polynesian culture.
yeah, Samoan or Polynesian or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
like, they worked really closely to make sure it was right because representation matters, and literally everyone in the comments is like, "Okay, now do the Odyssey." It's like, the hypocrisy is insane, man. It's so obvious, like, they could not make it any more clear which cultures they care about and which ones they don't. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm really annoyed at the Odyssey, and I hope it fucking fails.
Menelaus has no aura. Paris is such poggers.
If you can get a 3-hour Oppenheimer biopic to 900 million, I'd be shocked if a more action-oriented fantasy film doesn't hit at least 950. See, here's where you're wrong, because Oppenheimer was, drumroll please, a fluke. It was a fluke. Barbenheimer carried that movie to much greater heights than it would have otherwise. There's no way that movie makes $900 million if it isn't for the whole Barbenheimer thing.
Yeah, the
All right.
meme really, the meme standing on the shoulders of memes is what that movie was doing.
Yeah, like Dunkirk is a more action-oriented movie than, you know, Oppenheimer, and that made like what, 500 million, 600 million, something like that. No, he hasn't made a movie make over 1 billion that wasn't Batman oriented. So no,
Yeah,
I don't
Dunkirk
think
made
that logic holds up.
550
Yeah,
million.
exactly. Well, that's more action oriented than Oppenheimer was. Why didn't that do 1 billion?
Yeah,
Hmm.
Tenet bombed too. That was very action oriented. That was like the whole thing.
Yeah, I just don't think that. I don't think that's true. I think this movie. Well, I hope it flops. I've made that clear, but I think it's gonna barely break even. That's what I think.
And
Well, it's
vanish
also like,
into the ether until the Academy Awards come around and offer it, like, oh, it's Best Picture, Christopher Nolan.
of course, yeah. I don't know, man. I just don't think. Well, the other thing you have to think of, like for like an action oriented blockbuster sword and sandals epic, it really needs to appeal to guys who want movies to be cool. You know, like dudes.
I think he's
Perhaps you've heard of
trying
them.
that. I like he
Well,
like
well, I mean, when you watch the movie or the trailers for the movie and you see all the marketing materials, the tone of everything is not cool. Like there's a big spectacle, there's, big battle sequences and there's fires and stuff like that. But everything about it is pretty kind of like, I don't know, like dour is the word I would use. I don't
That's
know
well,
that
yeah, that's true.
actually
The whole idea of like, oh well, we need to pay more attention to the perspective of women in our action movie.
that,
About
and like
yeah, in
he
our
feels
sword and
like,
sandals epic needs
yeah,
more
I
lady.
don't know. It doesn't look cool and exciting, really,
I
to
think
me.
that like he figures, from what I can tell, right, that the cool bits are going to be from the armor that looks like Batman. Right,
Yeah,
like
but they've
that's yeah.
have you seen that image of Joe Bernthal and Tom Holland looking like a CW Robin Hood show?
Yeah,
Have you seen that
I have.
image?
Yeah.
Dude,
It looks like it was
what are we
cut
doing?
from 28 years later, honestly. Like
What yeah, it does. It does look like it's from 28 years later. It's man, it's not cool. And this is the other thing I was thinking about. Like, okay, so this is a movie that obviously, under basically every circumstance, is going to appeal more to men than to women, right? But clearly, they want more women to see it. Obviously, this movie costs $250 million. You need women to be interested in seeing it. Um, and it's the irony to me is that for like specifically choosing a feminist translation of the original and for giving the female characters more screen time and all that sort of crap, uh, you know what would have actually brought more women into the theater to see it is making the actresses look really pretty and giving them beautiful costumes to wear. And I'm not really
yeah,
seeing a lot of
yeah.
that from the movie, if I'm being honest. Like, okay, I'll give you a little anecdote. I don't know if I told you this, Hugh, already, but we were watching the U.S. World Cup game that they lost. Boo. But with some friends out on the town, right? And a female friend pulled out her phone and was showing my girlfriend some images from the actresses of the Odyssey at the world premiere, like red carpet. And she half jokingly said, "This is my World Cup," right? Now, notice she wasn't talking about the movie. She was talking
She's talking
about
about the
the
red
red
carpet.
carpet.
Yeah.
Yes,
There
right?
used to be a time, okay, and I think that this is something that we have all forgotten for whatever reason, right? That the red carpet, opening of the Oscars wasn't just for gays. It was for women too. Women
Yeah. No, it's for women primarily, I think
Yeah.
you would say. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very much that like the guys watched the awards to see which of the movies won because we like the competition angle, and the women watched for the red carpet stuff to see what gorgeous dress Charlize Theron was wearing, right? Like that was that the reason that the usual question from the reporters on the red carpet to the women is, so who are you wearing tonight? Is because that's what the women are interested in hearing about. They want to know where that dress came from because it's pretty. They want to
Yes.
know who made it because it looks good.
Yeah. And then when you look at the trailers for the Odyssey, With the one exception, I think I saw Anne Hathaway in some dress that actually looked like a little bit regal. I wouldn't say it was the most inspired thing I've ever seen, but for the most part, all the women's outfits look as drab and uninspired as all the men's armor.
Yeah,
You know, like when you're appealing to men, you give them cool armor to wear that's practical and makes sense and looks awesome, right? And even better if it's historically accurate. I wouldn't even say that's the most important thing, but it's part of it, right?
yeah,
And for the women, you make the actresses look really pretty and you give them beautiful costumes to wear, and they go, "Oh my God, look at that! That's amazing!" You know,
yeah.
like it. Obviously, it's not the only thing that
It's
matters,
not the only thing. It's just
but it's a big
this
thing.
is generalizations, obviously, right? Like there are going to be outliers, but like the vast majority of the female audience wants to see pretty things. Like they're
Yeah,
in it
no,
for like
it's not that this. Like someone said, this is a bit shallow, dude. Okay,
it's not the
I
only thing they
know.
want.
No, it's of course they want more than that. But these are all the aesthetic markers that are being used to advertise whether the film will be worth seeing to people, right? They matter a lot, and people do care about these things. But part of the reason that you know that there was never anyone who said in this sort of like making of the Odyssey, like, oh, well, we should make sure that all the actresses in the movie are really pretty and they have like beautiful costumes to wear, is that that person would be accused of being sexist, even though they're right. Like, I don't know why we're pretending what people like, we're pretending not to know what people want anymore. And it's, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's the main thing. That's the main thing. Anyway,
Anyway,
we've
see, I'm so annoyed at this movie. This movie is pissing me off so much. I listen. If the Odyssey comes out and it's actually pretty good, and it's just the marketing has made it look really bad, I'll eat my words. But I really don't think it will be. I think it's gonna be a pretty bad movie, and
yeah.
it's it drives me
Yeah,
crazy.
Ephraim,
Anyway,
Ephraim Winslow put it very well, I think, right here, right? The question isn't do women only care about colorful and extravagant outfits? Do they only care about pretty things like that? That's not the question. The question is more do women as a demographic reliably respond to the incentive of colorful and extravagant outfits more so than other aspects? And I think the answer to that one is very much a yes. It's a yes.
yes. What is the best performing movie of the year that was aimed specifically at women? It was The Devil
Devil
Wears
Wears
Prada
Prada 2.
2.
The Devil Wears Prada 2 crushed it at the box office. It made more than Supergirl.
Yes. I wonder why that is. I wonder. Or are we gonna maybe pretend that there aren't like actual differences between men and women anymore and keep losing money? Yeah, let's see what works for you, Hollywood, I guess. Anyway, let's talk about 310 to Yuma. Where were we?
uh,
Um,
I don't even remember. I just.
I know it's on my mind. This whole Odyssey debacle is on my mind a lot. But basically, we were talking about the overall arc of the story. I think we got the gist of the overall arc, and we are talking about some of the differences. So I think we can just kind of jump through, kind of go through the plots of each. This is another remake of an old movie that adds a whole half an hour of runtime needlessly. The 2007 movie is a full 30 minutes, almost exactly, I think, longer than the original, and it is not better for it. Many remakes are not either. Um, the remake adds scenes to the very beginning of this movie. It's really funny, Hugh, because I watched the behind the scenes interview with Elmore Leonard, who wrote the short story, on the special features of the 1957 movie Blu-ray, right? And it was interesting hearing him talk about how he got his start in writing for like, dime paperback Western magazines and all that sort of fun stuff. He's an interesting guy, and he has a way with words, as you might expect. He is talking about getting this movie made because he always had eyes for like getting his stuff adapted for the screen and writing for the screen, right? Because that's where the money is. And he's like, I want to make money. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't blame you. So he talked about getting this movie made and talking about how like a lot of studio notes early in his career were very like really bad studio notes, and he's like, no, we can't do that. That's going to make everything worse. And luckily they didn't like force him to add some of these things because they would have made the movie worse. One of the things he said about this movie was like adding backstory. Like they're like, "Oh, we want to know like how they ended up in this part of country and what their backstory is." And he's like, "No, like that's not important. It's not relevant to the story really at all where they came from exactly and what their whole history was and what their childhood was like." And then this movie basically opens with like, here's a bit more backstory of like how things are going for Dale, Christian Bale, and his family. It's like, oh, because you need to
Yeah.
know a bit more about like how things are going for them and all their other problems, in addition to the problems that are gonna come up in this movie. And
So
it's like,
then, okay, so this is another departure from what the original one set up a bit, right? Because it's expanding on it and adding more, which you get the impression that the director of the remake figured that we were missing from the first one. Otherwise, he wouldn't have remade the movie, right? So
quick thing. Yes, Kevo. Elmore Leonard also wrote the, I think, novel or short story, I don't remember which, that Justified, the TV show, is based on.
what a
That is
good
true.
show! That show is awesome, dude. I really like that. I've only seen the first couple of seasons. I never finished it, but I loved those first few seasons. Walton
Anyway,
Goggins
you were
so
saying.
fucking good. Anyway, yeah, okay. So the things from the original, the backstory of the rancher from the original. His ranch is not doing great because there is a drought, and
Mhm.
he is a veteran. There's the
That-
backstory.
that's about
And
it.
he's a veteran who has morals, right? And he's trying
Yeah.
to raise his family, keep his wife happy, raise his kids, but like things are tough. Times are tough. They're
He's kind
arguing.
of a proud guy.
Yeah,
An argument comes up about whether he could go into town and ask for money. He's like, I don't want to beg. And his wife's like, well, asking's not begging, you know.
yeah.
But he's and okay, so this is
Yeah.
going to be probably my biggest problem, or the thing that I think is like the biggest change and that makes everything worse for me from the original to the remake. In the original, he has a loving family, especially his wife, who is a great character, and she actually comes back later in the movie and improves the story by being there. She's great, she's lovely, she's faithful, she's loyal, she seems pretty smart and pretty tough. She seems like a good, honest woman, and they have a really nice, loving family and everything like that. Um, in the remake, uh, everyone is sort of embarrassed by him,
Yeah,
by Christian Bale's character. They think he's kind of pathetic, and they don't really love him all that much, and they think he's weak and he needs to be strong and tough, like like
the
the
kid
outlaw
from
Ben Wade.
the kid from Percy Jackson is in the remake movie, and he's playing your like prototypical teenager who hates his dad because his dad is such a loser.
Yeah,
And it's just like it's lame, man. It's a really lame addition.
it's
We've also
lame.
added we've added that there's a loan shark in this small western town that the rancher has borrowed money from for feed, but then they showed up. The loan shark's goons, played by that famous actor who has the Glasgow smile on his cheeks, who I can't remember his name, but he's like the tough guy goon in a lot of things, unless he's playing like the big teddy bear guy, which is, you know what? It's a great character actor. I want to see him in more stuff. But he shows up and burns their barn down, because that way the loan shark can foreclose on the ranch and kick Christian Bale and his family off of it. Christian
Yes.
Bale also only has one leg. That's going to be really funny moving forward in the movie because it doesn't do anything. It serves no
No.
purpose, really.
Other
Um,
than to make him a cripple also.
yeah,
It's just I don't understand it. So Georges Rex makes a good point. His creditor comes around and burns the barn down. He burns Christian Bale's barn down. Why doesn't he get a lien on the ranch instead of committing crimes? It's like, yes, yes. Basically, in general, there's sort of how we're going to change the original for the remake is we're going to make the hero a bit more pathetic. His family's not going to love or respect him really all that much until
the
like the
town.
very
Yeah,
end. He's going to convince his son that he's got more guts than he thought by the very end, but in general, he's going to be weaker and more pathetic. Still going to do the right thing, but we're going to kind of put him down constantly. Also, everyone in the town is going to be more morally gray, so we can justify Ben Wade maybe not being the worst guy. Like everyone he's going to kill is going to suck, so you're going to the movie hopes that we'll think like, ah, well, that guy sucked, so it was fine that he killed him. We're gonna
Yeah.
everything about it feels like a modern change to do away with sort of like idealized aspirational. Well, it's not even idealized because he's not unrealistically heroic in the original movie. He just seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
But in the remake, it's like now we don't really have the same level of noble and dignified heroism to look up to. He's still heroic, but it's kind of like
It's almost
the
more of a
movie is
selfish heroism, right? Because it's not about like in the original one, he says, he volunteers because the bank man who runs or the stagecoach company guy offers $200 to everybody who will help him get Ben Wade to Yuma for trial, right?
yeah,
And he volunteers because he's in kind of dire straits, so the money would be good, right? But by the end of it, it's not about the money, and his wife and the guy who offered to pay him are begging him not to go through with it because they consider it suicide, right? And
yeah,
he's like, No, I've got to do this because it's the right thing to do. Yeah, getting him
yes.
to face justice is the right thing to do, even if it means
Someone needs to
risking
do
my
it.
life. In the
Yes,
in the remake, it's quite literally because he's ashamed that his son doesn't like him and
doesn't
thinks he's a
respect him.
bitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
I
much
mean,
more
it's
selfish attitude. It's not because
and
he's
because we put him in more dire straits, so like not only is he going to like lose his property, but they're gonna like terrorize him over it, and because like everyone in this town kind of sucks, and he's like, so he's really like his whole family's gonna fall apart. That it's already falling apart. His wife already doesn't love him anymore, and his son at the beginning of the movie when they get their barn burned down, he's like, "I'll handle it." And he's like, "No, you won't." And then not even 10 minutes later in the movie, he's like, "I'm not going to be like you." Like
yeah.
from the get-go, he's not respected. So it's about earning their respect more, and it is more about the money ultimately because he's more desperate for the money.
And
So
yeah,
it's
we also are going to undermine that later on in the movie too because like
true.
it stops we'll get there. But yeah, it stops becoming about heroism and like and think symbolically of how like the ending of the original one, like the guy like basically participates in some selfless righteous heroism, and rain starts to fall on the land
Yes.
that has been cursed with drought for months, right?
Mhm. The universe
The
itself is calling
universe,
out for
yeah, the
justice. Yeah.
universe has corrected, right? The course correction
Yeah.
has happened here because he, made like that's the symbolism there. The ending of the
Dude,
remake,
it's so good.
yeah,
Oh, man.
the ending of the remake.
There's there's not even any rain.
Well, there's not even any rain, and then like, oh my god, we're gonna. I have to wait. I have to wait until we get there. But the other thing that I wanted to mention specifically about the townspeople and the downstep that we do from the original to the remake, because the original one, the townspeople are all kind of unified, right?
Yeah.
They're like not used to having they're not used to having outlaws in the town. They're not used to, like, they don't take advantage of it's like a real town on the frontier where
Yes.
everybody is like looking out for each other, and your word means, like everything. And you
Yeah.
like you're all neighbors, so you all help. You're all going through the same shit, right? It's a real neighborly group. But in the remake version, we're like, oh yeah, there's like loan sharks, and they all like kind of think the rancher's an idiot for doing ranching things, even though there's no rain, and like everybody's just kind of out for themselves. It's such a a bald face like mask slip modernity moment where it's like, oh
Yes.
yeah, no, there is no community. There's no community. There is no sense that like, hey, we're all Christians here in this town. Like they don't have that. That's not a thing.
Because in the original, there's a question of, like, how far they're willing to risk their lives to ensure that this guy faces justice. They all believe he ought to, right?
Yeah,
And they're all good people who just wanna do the right thing, but at a certain point, things become so risky that it's like, "I don't know if I'm willing to risk my life over this. I have a family, blah, blah, blah." You know, like, and maybe there's a little bit of cowardice there, but they're fundamentally good people. Like, you don't come away from the movie thinking everyone who failed to do the right thing sucks, you know?
yeah.
Like, they're decent people, but ultimately, this is, like, an extraordinary sort of, like, act of, like, risk and selflessness that he's, like, willing to maybe die to make sure that this guy, you know, faces justice, and that's what makes him remarkable. But the townspeople are just good. They're just good people. With maybe, like, the one exception of the really pretty girl who works at the bar who sleeps with him and who doesn't really seem all that perturbed when she finds out that he's a killer,
Yeah,
you
but
know?
she's new in town. Remember, she's a
Yeah.
drifter like him. That's why he's able
Yeah,
to
that's
exploit that.
true.
So she's
That's
not
true.
part of the community. She's just like drifting
It's
from
also,
frontier
like,
town to frontier town.
kind of implied that she might have been a prostitute before. You know, she, like, sang and danced at a place that was probably of ill repute. I don't know if that makes her a prostitute. It's not really explicitly stated. It's possible, you know?
Yeah,
There's a strong implication that that might be the case.
exactly. Yeah. So like we've changed the town to be more cutthroat and violent for everybody, right? Because nobody cares that this dude, this loan sharking asshole and his goons are like burning down the barn that he lent this guy money for. You know, because that way he can foreclose on the like and basically kick him off the property and claim the land as as his own. And he throws out the lines like your land's more valuable with you not on it. And it's like okay, so like capitalism is the villain. Sure. Okay,
Well,
that's
okay, let's
modernity
talk
for
about
you, really.
because
Like yeah.
there's some yeah. Okay, so there's some characters who are not in the original. One of them is Alan Tudyk's Doc Potter character, who is
Yeah,
just kind
well,
of a
it,
punching bag.
he is so that character is in the original cuz Potter is the town drunk who tries to help him. But he's
Oh,
not a
right, I
doctor.
forgot.
He's
So
just the town
he's
drunk who
completely changed.
like they've completely changed him.
Oh, dude. Okay, like I'll give you an example, right? So this is a great example because they completely changed this character entirely. It's not the same person at all. But in the original, there is a guy named Potter. He's the town drunk. He's kind of the butt of the joke, right? He like you know wakes up late. He gets on his horse to go help out, but like he's you know he's drunk. He doesn't really know where he's going. He's an alcoholic when everyone else is kind of like a good, not Puritan, but like, you know, more sort of like Protestant. You know, they're not
They're
big
more
on drinking,
stoic.
right?
Yeah, they're
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
More straight edge. Anyway, so he's the town drunk, but he agrees to help out anyway and help bring this guy to justice and loses his life in the process. And at one point, Van Heflin's Dan, the hero of the story, is telling, I think, his wife why he feels he really needs to do this. And he's like, well, if the town drunk can risk his life to make sure this happens, then I can. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, damn, there's a level of respect for that town drunk character. It's actually really interesting. Meanwhile, Alan Tudyk plays Doc Potter, which is some loose connection to Potter the drunk from the original. Now he's a veterinarian. And so at one point when the stagecoach driver gets shot, or not the driver, but like one of the Pinkertons, he gets shot, he gets brought into a doctor, and it's like a haha funny joke that he's a veterinarian, not a normal doctor. And he goes, "Oh, it's nice to talk to a patient that can talk back for a change." Ha ha ha. And it's like, why does this town have a veterinarian and no real doctor? What are we doing? like this, first of all, I
Yeah.
just
Well,
this
I
is
mean,
such a
like I
small
wouldn't.
like
I would imagine that it's probably like maybe it was a common thing back in the day that like you're like if everybody's riding horses and you're dependent on horses, right? You'd have a
this town
veterinarian.
doesn't have a normal doctor.
Yeah, I
It's a
like.
very small town. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's just but basically he's the kind of like, you know, he plays the kind of characters that Alan Tudyk plays a lot where he's a little flustered. He's like C3PO
Yeah.
essentially. You know, he's
Yes.
there, but he's not like I don't know. He's just kind of there to be a little bit of a comic relief, and it's like this feels like we're dumbing things down quite a bit,
As much
actually.
as I like Alan Tudyk,
Yeah,
you know, it's
he's
not.
fine.
He's fine, and the way that like the way that Potter goes out in the original one, as opposed to how he does in the remake, is just like it almost like borderline character assassination in a way. If Potter
Yeah,
was like okay, so in the original one, the drunk Potter is one of the only guys who like after the gang, Ben Wade's gang arrives in contention, he's one of the only guys who sticks with Dan. He's one of the only guys who's like, I'm getting nah, I'm here, I'm seeing it through, right? And
really
he
quick, I want to point out that people are making good arguments for why there would be a veterinarian.
yes.
I hear you, especially with the farm animals. All right, I'll take that one back.
Yeah. And I would imagine that it would be common that the veterinarian would also act as like an emergency surgeon in those situations, right? In those frontier,
Yeah,
because like
no,
if you
that's
don't have
fair.
yeah,
That's fair.
if you don't have a
It's
doctor,
more so what you're about to talk about in terms of
yeah,
like how we treat the character.
so in the original one, he's one of the only ones who sticks with them through, the when everybody else abandons Dan and the righteous cause. Potter, the town drunk, is one of the only ones who doesn't, and he pays a heavy price for it. He's hung by the gang of outlaws, and it's a bleak thing. It's meant to demoralize Dan, and that's it's tragic because he goes out correct. He does the right thing, and it doesn't work out for him. He's up against overwhelming odds, right? But he does redeem himself in a way from being too drunk to function and like kind of the
Yeah,
butt of the joke. He does end up being relatively useful. He's the one who notifies them when they've ridden into town. I think he takes one out with him, right? Like he manages to get one.
yeah.
In the remake, we have this like bizarre detour that we have to take through a Chinese work camp for the railroads because this is a western, and we got to pay some lip service to the fact that the U.S. exploited Chinese workers when building the railroads. I guess it doesn't really affect anything in the story, but
Not at all.
we've got to detour through there briefly, and rescue Ben Wade from Luke Wilson, who's in this movie probably because Owen was in Shanghai Noon, and they can't, one brother is in a western, the other's got to be. So they they have a moment where he manages to save Ben Wade from being tortured with like I don't even know what they're using, like a ancient car battery to like electrocute his balls or something. I'm not really sure, but he manages to save him, and as they ride away he gets shot and he dies before they make it to contention at all. And he's like, did we get away? And they say, yeah, brother, we got away. And it's just so lame
That's it,
comparatively.
right? That's
That's it.
all.
That's it. That's the end. It's like, yep, you did good. And he says something about like, oh, do you see how I hit that guy in the face with a shovel? I hit him with a shovel, Mal. How weird is that? Like, throw back to the Firefly thing. It's just not as good. The character has been squandered. Maybe not assassinated, but squandered. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Squandered is a better word for it, because he does stick with them through dangerous circumstances and everything like that, and then he dies a little unceremoniously, and that's really the end of it.
Oh, did I say hung? I meant hanged. You guys are correct. He was been hanged. Hung
Yeah.
does imply different, but the original version of Potter probably was. So
Dude, I mean, in the original one, like his silhouette is like the shadow of his hanging body is like silhouetted against the
yeah.
wall because this is an old 50s movie, so we use harsh light and have harsh shadows, and it's awesome and cool, and we don't do that in movies anymore, unfortunately. Um, it's such a striking image because they have to like walk up and past it several times over the course of the rest of the movie, just kind of looming there as a threat.
Yeah.
Really good.
God
Because, like,
damn,
for
dude.
example,
Well, it's the
when his
shadow of
wife,
death. It's literally the
yeah,
shadow of death hanging over the situation.
Yes,
It,
exactly, and so, like, when his wife arrives in town and comes into the hotel, she has to walk past that to get up to him, to have a conversation about how he shouldn't do this, so she literally has to see that as well. It's just another great detail. But, okay, we're going through the characters and talking about how they're worse, so who should we talk about next? Because we talked a little bit. Okay, so I wanna talk briefly about the wife, because the wife doesn't feature too much in the
no, they sort
remake,
of
really.
replace her role with the oldest son.
Uh
That is
Well,
like
yeah, they changed it a lot, but yes.
yeah, it's really altered, but he's the one who, rides after them to try to
Yeah, I guess you're
offer
right.
aid.
I guess
So
there's
like
something there.
yeah, cuz she disappears from the movie after
Yeah,
the dinner table scene.
in the original, the wife is a loyal and faithful wife to, Dan Evans. And like for example, like they're talking about how things aren't going great on the farm, right? Their cattle are thirsty and they're not looking so hot. And she's like, maybe you can go into town, maybe you could borrow some money, like, we could do something. And he's like, I don't want to go begging. And she's like, she's respectful of that he's like, prideful and doesn't want to. And they're both kind of like optimistic, like things are going to turn around. And they're like, yeah, things are going to turn around, basically, right?
Yeah, they're
Later,
having like, he does mention something like like I don't want you to look at me the way you look at me anymore, something like that, right? Like he does mention that they're having some problems, but they're
yeah,
going
they're
to
having money problems, but they still clearly love each other.
yeah.
That is important, I think. They're having money problems but like and so he's got that sort of attitude where like he is already kind of preemptively thinking that she might think less of him and she's like, "No, no, 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 like not at all." Like you know what I mean? Later in the movie, it'll come up when they're talking to each other in the hotel before he's going to ride out into danger to try and make sure he gets on that train. They have that conversation and she's like, if you ever thought that like I didn't love our life, that it wasn't enough for me, I hope you know that's not true. Yeah, right? Like, and because that's the real essence of the character there. Like they're having money problems, but they still love each other and you can feel that and it like really comes through. Like, okay, so earlier in the movie, before they get to contention, they do a fun little trick, and this occurs in both movies. I would just say it's better executed in the original. But basically, it's like, okay, there's the looming threat of his gang that wants to get him back, right? So what we're gonna do, we're bringing him in a coach, right? And we're gonna pass by Dan Evans, the hero's house. We're gonna pass by his house, and we're gonna do a little switcheroo where we're gonna pretend like the wheel gets stuck in a ditch, and so like, hey, can you come help us? And then they'll come out from the house, they'll try to like get the carriage back on the road, and while that happens they're going to switch out the the guy, like the actual criminal, with a guy that they have dressed up the same, and they're going to put the guy who's dressed like him in the carriage and they're going to send it off. And now if they're watching, the gang members are going to go after the carriage while the criminal, Ben Wade, is kept overnight at Dan's family's house. They're going to eat dinner together and then they're going to ride off in the morning. And they have a couple different options of where they're going to go, but they eventually end up going to contention. So we have this great dinner table scene where it's like Ben Wade with his handcuffs on, and then Dan and his family are all eating dinner together, right? And so in both scenes, he's being sort of like, like he's a smooth talker and he's being like a
He's
little
coming
smug or
he's
whatever.
he's being very he's acting very nonchalant, right? Like it's not a big deal
Yes.
for him, right? And that's he's doing that in order to intimidate them, essentially,
Yes.
to kind of try to throw them off their guard so that he can find a weakness to exploit. That's
Yeah.
that's his whole purpose. It's very sly in both, but in
Yeah.
the original one, yeah, like there's a he so okay, they put a plate of meat, a plate of food in front of him. There's some meat on the table, and he kind of just like he's handcuffed, and he kind of looks at it and says like, "Could you cut my meat for me? You mind cutting this? Yeah, I can't really do it. I've got his hands are cuffed. He's kind of making it their problem. Like
Yes.
bringing them closer, trying to catch them off guard. In the remake, what does he do, Jamie?
Uh, so So, like he said, in the original, he's like, "Will you cut my meat for me?" And they don't do it. In the remake, he says, he's, like, eating his steak, like, with a fork and, like, just gnawing off pieces, he's not able to cut it up, right? And so his wife looks at Christian Bale to say, like, "Hey, will you cut" like, it gives him a look like, "Hey, will you cut his meat for him?" And so then Christian Bale goes up, like, kinda like a cuck, essentially, and goes and, like, cuts up his meat for him, and then while he's cutting it up, Russell Crowe is like, "Oh, make sure you get the fat off, I don't like the fat." It's like a humiliation thing, essentially. He
Yeah.
gets kind of
He doesn't do
humiliated
that in
by
the
this
original
guy.
one. Doesn't he say that in the original? He says like, "Make sure I don't like the fat." Not a
Well,
big.
he says that, but he doesn't cut the meat for him.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like, that's the difference. You know, he does say that line about the fat, but it's like the remake is like, "Oh, what if he actually did have to cut it for him? How
Oh
wouldn't that
wait,
be
no, yeah.
humiliating?"
Hold on. Georgius points out like Dan does offer to do it for him, and he accepts. He says, "You want me to cut that for you?" And he accepts and says like, "Yeah." And
But
then
I
like,
thought he didn't cut it for him, though. Am I misremembering that?
no, he's still. I'm pretty sure he does because that's when he says like, "Oh, and make sure you cut the fat off. I don't like the fat."
But
But it is that like it's the difference being right that Dan offers it to him because he's sort of trying to play it cool too, right? Like he's basically maybe not trying to be friendly, but at the very least trying to be hospitable because that's what is expected, and that's like they have a whole moment where the son asks about saying grace, and it's executed so much better in the original one, right? Where like they sit down and they start to eat, and the son goes, "We're supposed to say grace, ain't we?" Right? And she's like, "Well, we don't have to do that right now." Yeah, and he goes, "But even grace is for bad people too, right? Especially for bad people." And she's like, "Well, you know what? Yes, that is true, right?" He goes, "So ain't we gonna say grace?" And he kind of kowtows her into it, but in the new version, it's just so much more rehearsed. Almost like it just feels like they're reading off of a page. It doesn't feel like the wife is because and the reason you get the sense that in the original one, the reason is because the wife is kind of off put by having this notorious criminal at her table. She's not quite on her game. She doesn't know how to command the room as she might normally with this guy, this
yeah.
other with this guy here who like this unknown variable sitting at the table. In the new
Oh, so
one,
there's
she is very commanding overall. Like she's in control of the situation basically the whole time. Doesn't really show this nervousness at all. She's just like, well, yes, we do even say grace, even especially for bad people, right? And then she makes Christian Bale cut his meat for him when he, is sitting there struggling and watching it. So it is, in a way, like
okay.
removing the father from the head of the table, right? It's all like a way of kind of knocking because he in the original one, even though she's kind of off kilter, he's kind of trying to present himself as calm and collected and in charge.
Yeah. Okay. There's a few changes here. This is what I mean when I said earlier that, like, a lot of the details get changed. Even if the overall picture looks pretty similar, like, all the finer details and the mechanics of it are changed. So, like you said, we have the same bit where the kids are like, "Shouldn't we say grace?" And it's like, "Yes, we should." And she's a little flustered in the original, right? But there's even a great line where she's like, when they finally start to say grace in the original, she says, "Dear Lord, we thank thee for life and for food, and we ask thee to give us the wisdom that comes with silence." She says, as a very pointed, like, "Shut up, kids."
Yeah,
And then they listen to her, right? She doesn't say that in the remake. She just says, like, "Oh, bless us for life and food, and thank you very much. Amen." Like, that's
yeah,
basically the
that's
gist of it,
basically the
right?
gist of it. But like she says, for the wisdom of silence, and then we're gonna get into this in a second because there's a big change or a small change that has big ramifications moving forward. I think for all the characters that happens at this scene. It's the scene you were quoting from earlier about the sea captain in San Francisco,
Yes.
right?
We'll come to that briefly because there's a couple other changes here. And to be clear, because we there's a question about it. So in the original, he says, he just says, like, apropos of nothing, "Would you like me to cut your meat?" And he says, "Yeah, would you please? Thank you. Would you mind cutting the fat off? I don't like fat." And then they hear a noise and they go, "What was it?" We don't actually do the thing where he cuts the meat, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. There you
That's what
go.
happens. That's what was throwing me. In the remake, he's trying to eat it kind of like a caveman with a fork and no knife and just kind of eating like biting off of a giant piece of steak or something like that. And then his wife gives Dan a look like, "Hey, will you cut that for him?" And then begrudgingly, Christian Bale goes over to cut it for him, and then to further humiliate him, Russell Crowe goes, "Oh, while you're there, will you cut off the fat? I don't like the fat and the gristle." And the whole thing is kind of like a humiliation, right?
Yeah.
That he ought to that's how it's presented in the movie. He ought not to do this, or that he ought to stand up for himself and not be humiliated like this. It's a change that basically serves to, like a lot of other changes regarding his character, kind of humiliate him
Neuter him. Yeah,
unnecessarily.
it's neutering
Yes.
him. It's neutering the character.
Yeah.
Okay, so and there's one other thing that realized we forgot to mention it because we've been jumping around a little bit. But earlier in the chat, Jen had asked, I didn't think that he shot the guy. Like he didn't shoot to kill his own guy at the stagecoach when the driver takes him hostage and tries to use that as leverage to get them out, right? Because he's trying to save the money from being stolen. So in that scene, this is the only like there's about a dozen or maybe 13 members of the gang, the Ben Wade gang, and Ben Wade shoots the guy, his own guy first, and then shoots the guy who was taking him hostage, the stagecoach driver. And what he says is he knew the risk, he put himself in that situation that could have turned bad for us, so we had to make that sacrifice. And the rest of the gang kind of all comes
Yeah.
to understand that, but it leaves about a dozen of them alive, right? In this remade version, there and this is it like when they go to the bar after this and he ends up seducing the bartender girl, right? He has her pour whiskey for all of them, and they drink to the one fallen comrade who, they're like, well, the boss had to do it, it was him or us basically, and he's looking out for us. That's, that like it's a tragic thing, but it had to happen, right? In the remade version, 4 people were killed by the stagecoach party, and then another one was shot by Ben Wade, right? So 5 people have died in one operation, and that really ends up nullifying a lot of the tension and the loyalty that we get from the gang to Ben Wade, because if this is how they're operating regularly, right? They're probably losing people a lot more frequently than they were in the original one, right? The
Yes.
original one is much more calculated. They're going after unarmed stagecoaches or armed stagecoaches that they heavily outnumber, right, in order to kind of use numbers as an intimidation tactic to get what they want, right? In this one, they charge a fully armed stagecoach with a Gatling gun. They lose 5 people in one raid. It really makes it cheaper that then Ben Wade shot one guy to get to the Pinkerton who was trying to hold him hostage, right?
Yeah.
It cheapens that a lot. It cheapens the value of their lives. It also is going to make things more difficult later on, as in contention when when the posse shows up, right? It's going to make things more difficult to feel overwhelming. So the new movie is going to have to take some extra steps because we've introduced these heavy losses essentially, but it makes it much cheaper overall. And Georgia says, if Russell Crowe ruthlessly kills his own men, no wonder at least one of them is discontented. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, if he's
You'd expect more of them
you'd
to be,
expect
yeah.
more of them to be. He's leading them into these situations where death is much. The chances of being killed are much higher, right? It's a much higher possibility of dying in a raid where there's a Gatling gun mounted on the stagecoach. It's a big difference between an unarmed one and that. So we've cheapened a lot of what the original one has working for it, and we're gonna do it again at this dinner table scene. with the conversation between the wife and Ben Wade, because
They hear a noise outside. Someone shoots a gun. Hold on. You take it. A second.
okay, yeah, so they hear somebody shoot outside. They go out to, and in the original one, they go out to, to find out what's happening. And Potter has seen something move in the bushes, and he's preemptively fired at it to try to, basically like try to this because he's nervous, right? And they bring up to him in this point. They're like, "Hey, you probably shouldn't have done that because like if anybody is out there watching, then they know we have something to protect inside the house." Right? We know you, that's a problem. But at the dinner table, then, because even though the wife has prayed that they realize the virtue of silence, right? The youngest son brings up to Ben Wade that his mother is from San Francisco and her father is a sea captain. And Ben Wade starts immediately in on the seduction routine with her. He says, "Oh, I used to know a girl from San Francisco. She was a sea captain's daughter too. And she had the most lovely green eyes. I used to, and it's the bit that you were reading earlier, that you were quoting from earlier. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He immediately launches into the seduction element with her, and Van Heflin comes back in and asks her to step out to speak with him alone, away from him, right? So like we see that he's taking advantage of that. Now in the remake, same thing happens. They hear Potter fire off a gun, but they come out, they do not mention to him the same concern about how, hey, the fact that you just shot, if anybody's watching the house, which we're going to find out, by the way, in this one, they were not watching the house. It's a little bit, it's a little bit different, right? But he's like, if anybody's watching the house, they will know. They don't mention any of that. They just come out, they go, oh, dang. And wow, I guess, better keep on our guard. And as he leaves, unprompted in the remake, Ben Wade goes, "So lady, you ever been to San Francisco?" "I've been to San Francisco. I used to know a sea captain's daughter there. She had beautiful green eyes." And he does the same exact lines, but it's not
The meaning is gone.
but the meaning is gone because it's not prompted by anything. He's just like telling her a story that for all he knows has nothing to do with her. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and I would say the other, so there's that, it's unprompted, right? Because like you said, the kids bring up where she's from kind of unprompted earlier because they're kids and they're just like saying shit to say shit. But now in this one, he just kind of says that unprompted. It doesn't really work quite as well as a seduction line. But also in the original, she doesn't appear seduced by him at all. In the original, you do not get the sense that that was working on her. In the remake, you do.
Yeah, you really
In the
do.
remake, you do because okay. So what does he say? Hold on, I have it right here. Just a moment. In the original, he comes back in, kind of pulls her away, and says, "What did you have to sit there listening to him like that for?" And she says, "What do you mean?" He says, "You know what I mean." All bug-eyed and listening to him, and then they get distracted by something. So he's clearly a little concerned that she might be seduced by him and doesn't like the idea of her just listening to him yap because he knows that he's a smooth talker and all that sort of stuff and that he's evil. Blah blah blah. In the remake, it's the same sort of thing. He comes back in and says, like, for God's sake, he's killed more men than the drought. And she says, he's not what I expected. In a sort of like, oh, I expected him
I
to be
expected
more of
him
a
to be like, I didn't expect him to be so hot. Like that.
there's
Like,
a little
yeah.
bit of like the seduction was working, right? And so basically, in short, what we do with the wife in the remake is we make her prettier, but a worse person. This is
Yes.
not going to be the only example because in this argument, I think he says, dangerous is what he is, Alice. I don't want you or the boys talking to him. And she says, you can change your mind, Dan. No one will think less of you. He says, no one can think less of me.
Oh
6 months from
God.
now, everything's going to be green. The cows are going to be fat. We might even see the stream from the train coming over the ridge. We'll be all right, but we won't make it through the next 6 days if I don't do this.
Yeah,
Right?
because
And
he stepped in this one. Like again, like we mentioned in the original, the stagecoach man says, I will pay $200 to every man who helps me take him to and put him on the train to Yuma." And Dan steps in and says, "All right, yeah, I'll volunteer. I'll do it." In this one, he steps up and goes, "Yeah, I'll do it for $200." Like
Yeah, it
he
makes it more
basically said he
selfish.
it makes him more selfish, but like granted, he needs the $200 because that's what he needs to do to repay his loan to the loan
Yeah,
shark, who's
he's more
already
strapped
like
for
yeah he's
cash.
more but like he's to repay his loan for a loan shark, and this is something that's going to frequently come up in this remake, right? He needs to repay the loan to a loan shark who he has no reason to believe will actually stick by his word because
Yeah.
nobody in the remake sticks by their word.
Yeah, and also he's made it clear that the money is more valuable to him. Sorry, the land is more valuable to him with him off it, kind of regardless. He wants him out. So like even if he pays him, there's no reason to believe he'll stick to it. He's doing it less for noble reasons now, and his wife doesn't love him, which is the part I was just about to get to. It really kind of annoys me. So they're getting into an argument about this, but instead of like I love you and we're going to make it work no matter what, don't worry. He's like, "Now I'm tired, Alice. I'm tired of watching my boys go hungry. I'm tired of the way they look at me. I'm tired of the way you don't." And she responds to that with a sort of knowing, like, I'm not going to try and repudiate that. Like that's true, basically. The movie is like
Yeah, you're
pretty,
right. I don't love you.
yes,
That's what she
essentially.
says. You're right. I don't love you, but that doesn't mean you have to throw your life away.
Dude, oh man, it's so annoying. It's so much worse. So much less interesting, so much less likable. And so he says, I've been standing on one leg for 3 damn years. And this is the only really thing that the fact that he has one leg is doing. Like
Yeah,
he's just a cripple.
it's not gonna
He's
come
just
into
a
play
cripple.
at all.
And he's going to be doing all sorts of running and action, and it's not gonna
There's
matter.
a scene at the
But he
end where he jumps across a roof, then slides off the roof and does a dive roll, basically a combat roll up, and then hauls ass across an open field of like a field of fire,
yes.
of a bullet storm, and it's like, does he have that thing screwed into the bone? Like, what is happening? How did that not fall off? He landed on his feet. Like, you can't do that with one leg.
Oh, no, you certainly cannot. So anyway, he brings up that he's a cripple and he says, I've been standing on one leg for 3 damn years. Oh, and there's another thing that never comes up in the original, but comes up here, right? Because of course it does. He says, I've been standing on one leg for 3 damn years waiting for God to do me a favor, and he ain't listening. And so now he's sort of mad at God. We're adding that
Oh
level
boy, yeah.
into it. It's like I don't like you nearly as much as the guy that you've replaced. What happened to the old guy? He was a much more upstanding, heroic guy. I like him a lot better. And so after he leaves, the wife is gone from the movie because why would she come back? I mean, she doesn't love him. You know, she doesn't want him to die, but she doesn't love him clearly, and she's not even really all that concerned with like her own safety, really. You know what I mean? Like, as you would think, even if she didn't love him, if he's going to like do something that's obviously going to get him killed, that she even selfishly would be like you can't leave me here like this with the whole farm and blah blah blah. But that doesn't even come up really. She's barely a character at all. She's someone who exists to be like slightly seduced by Ben Wade in a way that further humiliates Dan and forces him on this journey. Basically, that's what she's
Yeah.
there to do. Whereas in the original, she doesn't leave the story at this point. She comes back. He goes off to do this sort of thing. And actually, let's get it because I want to get what they actually say right before he leaves. Um,
Yeah, pull that shit up, Jamie.
uh, I don't want you to be worried, he says to his wife, because this is a lot safer than being with the coach. And she says to him, the boys are so proud. He says, what? And she says, proud of you, their own father capturing Ben Wade. Didn't you see them looking at you at supper? He says, no, all I saw was Wade. She says, and I'm proud too. Do
Wow.
you notice the difference, chat?
Big difference, chat.
Uh, this is the fundamental change in the whole ethos of the story. Did you notice a difference there? And this is true generally. Like, well, we haven't really talked about his eldest son yet. The sons don't play as big a role in the remake. Sorry, in the original, as the eldest son will play in the remake. Bizarrely, uh, but his sons are proud of him. for doing the right thing and being cool and heroic. Because what they hear when they have a criminal is like, "Oh, cool! Like my dad's gonna kill you," you know, like
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Like I
My
hear
if
you're a
my
criminal, my
pa
dad's gonna.
wanted, he'd shoot you dead.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My dad could beat up your dad. It's like you're a dirty criminal. My dad's gonna he could shoot you dead if he wanted to. In the remake, it's like they're kind of seduced by Ben Wade also and like thinking
Oh,
that he's
dude, it's
really
not
cool
even
and
just kind
awesome.
of. The oldest son there's a line in the remake where the oldest son has a gun at pointed at the back of Ben Wade's head, and Ben Wade says, "I don't believe you're gonna shoot a man you admire in the back."
Yeah. Yeah, it could not be more clear that for most of the story, his eldest son in the remake does not respect his father at all and actually kind of admires Ben Wade the criminal. So that is like a total inversion of the original. In the original, his kids are proud of him for doing this cool heroic thing because they mostly just see him as like a cattle farmer,
Yeah.
right? They like him and they respect him, but this is cool. And this proves that he is like a man of justice and that he's, all the sort of stuff that they like about him. And his wife too is like, "I'm proud of you." And he's like, "Don't worry, it won't be as dangerous as being with the coach was. We're gonna get him to on the train to Yuma, and it'll be fine. Don't worry about me." And she's like, "I'm proud of you." God, what a night and day difference. But then again, she's not even gone from the movie because she will come back at the end of the movie to like have this big heart to heart with him because she's worried about him because the gang is coming now. They know they're in contention and they're going to arrive there before or they have arrived there before the train has made it there. And so now it's looking like a suicide mission. And so she comes along to be like, "Look, you don't have to do this. I want you to know that if you ever thought that," because this is something that comes up in both movies where Ben Wade's like, "Oh, if I had a wife like that, I know I would treat her better than you do. I'd buy her all these pretty things, etc." Because Ben Wade, for most of the movie in the original 310 to Yuma, is sitting in a hotel room with Dan and trying to tell him all the reasons he should give up on this plan, right? And so it's like a slow ticking time bomb where he's just chatting in his ear the whole time, like, all the temptations to give up on this plan, right? And so at one point he like insults him essentially by being like, you don't treat your wife well enough, right? And then she comes along when she comes to talk to him about whether he's going to go through with this, apparently suicidal mission. She's like, "I just want you to know that like I'm happy with our life. I love you. I'm happy with our life. I never felt like it wasn't enough for me. I don't want you to think that." Right? And it's actually like a really sort of emotional moment. It's really good. Very like, you know, powerful little scene here. And like I love that she gets to come back cuz like her coming into town at the sort of height of the tension in the movie kind of does demonstrate how like tough she is as well, you know?
Yeah. So
Like she's
You're gonna love this one because Jay Jameson said, "I'd love to know the person that named the town Contention." So Contention or Contention City, Arizona, is a ghost town. It was a silver mining boom town in the 1880s, and it rose in prominence specifically to process silver ore from Tombstone, which is another great name for a town and the source of another great western. Uh,
yeah.
and the reason that it is called Contention is because there was a dispute over who owned the silver mine.
That's fun.
Yeah, so it's quite literal. They were like, "Yeah, it is contentious who owns that mine," and they were like, "All right, put it down. That's it. You've struck gold."
Dude, because we're highlighting the differences in how much it's worth. So here's some of the dialogue from the scene where his wife comes to him at the end of the movie, just to sort of demonstrate how good the character writing is for like him and his wife, right? So she comes in and there's thunder rumbling because there's a storm brewing, obviously. So it's working in that regard, like, oh, we're heading towards the climax. There's a storm coming, but also there's the possibility of rain, right? So it's got a great sort of double thing that the thunder is doing there. So she comes into the hotel. She sees Potter hanging from one of the chandeliers, dead, and she says, like, she comes in. She's like, "Dan, where are you?" He says, "Hey, did you hear that thunder? I think maybe it's gonna rain." And then she's like, he says, if it rains, that'll change everything. And she says, if it's something I said yesterday, please forgive me. And he keeps going with the rain. He says, wouldn't it be a wonder, everything green again? She says, Dan, please don't be stubborn. Says, I did hear thunder. It's like, Dan, there's no thunder. There won't be rain either. If I ever said anything that made you think I was complaining or how hard things were, it just isn't true because I love everything, every minute, all the worry, all the work, all the hurts of life. Right? If it's, and then some Mr. Butterfield, who is actually a good person in this movie, unlike the remake, we'll talk about it, says, if it's the 200 you need, I'll pay you anyway. Like, Dan, don't go through with this. Like, I'll just give you the money. I don't want you to die. It's not about that for me anymore. Like, it's all hope is lost, right? And she says, don't go through with it, dear. And he says, no, I've got to. That's for the money. He says, no. For me, he says, no, no, no. Then why? I've got to. That's all. So, oh, Dan, I don't want a hero. I want you. He said, honest to God, if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't. But I heard Alex scream. The town drunk gave his life because he believed the people should be able to live in decency and peace together. You think I can do less? Dude,
God, what a
so good.
fucking
Anyway,
line.
it keeps going.
Oh my
And
god.
so she says, don't. And he says, no, please don't go through with it. But I never have been able to give you very much. No pearls, nothing. Sometimes not even enough food for you and the boys. Well, maybe this will be something worth remembering. What are you saying? He says, oh, don't you think you can make it? And he says, oh, yes, of course. When it gets to be 3, I'll just walk to the station. That's all. She says, then why are you talking about a memory? He says, well, I mean, for the boys. The boys will always remember how their old man walked Ben Wade to the station. Then the clock strikes 3, right? That's just a little taste of how unbelievably good the dialogue is here, and like his little speech about like why it's important, because there's people in this town that believe they should be able to live in peace and decency, free from people like Ben Wade and everything, and that it's not about the money, and that it's not even about like proving himself worthy of her. It's just like, no, this needs to be done. If I didn't feel I had to do it, I wouldn't, etc. And everyone's trying to tell him all the reasons he doesn't have to, and he's like, no, I will. And then he starts talking about how this will be a great memory for him, which is sort of like him reckoning with the fact that he might die. But then he sort of covers it up by saying, like, no, just in general,
Yeah.
like it'll just be a good memory. And
Ah, it's
she
so
is such a
good,
good
dude.
character. It's
It's so much better. It's so much better than like having his angry older teenage son somehow for whatever reason come around. Like so like essentially what ends up happening with in the remake is that the older teenage son, he arrives midway through the journey because he, even though his father told him, I need you at home. Well, no, actually, wait a minute. Because his dad didn't tell him, no, I need you at. His dad is leaving the ranch that is essentially under assault by the loan shark in the town, right, to help escort Ben Wade to contention.
yes,
And the oldest son wants to go with him because the oldest son just doesn't believe that he can handle it, essentially, right, and that he's a better shot, and he
yeah,
like that's what it is. And instead of doing the thing that you would expect from a movie in this time period, where Christian Bale's version of Dan would say, I understand that you want to help, but I need you here to protect your mother and your brother, right? Instead of
yeah.
doing
I
that,
mean, all he says is, "I need you here." That's that.
that's that.
That's all he says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the teenage son just goes anyway. He just runs
Yes.
away anyway.
Yeah, because I we'll get. I just want to close the loop on the wife really quick, and then we'll get to the son because the final word, right? Because they have that little speech I just walked through, and then he says he's talking to Butterfield. He says, "You stay here with Alice. As soon as we get near those cattle pens, I want you to take my wife and drive her out of town as fast as you can. You hear me?" And he says, "Alice, I don't want you to worry. As soon as I get him to Yuma, I'll be right back." And she just says, "I'll be waiting." With like a smile, like I believe in you. I'll be waiting. And then at the end of the movie, you know what? Well, we'll save that. We'll save that
We'll
for when
save
we get
that
to
for
the
when we
grand
get to the
finale. Let's talk
endings.
about the fun.
Yeah, let's
But
talk.
I like that the final note is that she doesn't even try to argue with him. She's just like, you know what? You're right. I believe in you, and that's
Yep.
excellent. She's a great character. I love his wife in this movie, whose name Alice, right?
Yes.
Alice Evans, I believe. She's so good, and she's basically worthless in the remake. Let's talk about the son. So the son from the very beginning of 310 to Yuma 2007 has no respect for his dad, thinks he's a pussy, thinks people walk all over him. So they wake up in the middle of the night. This is how the movie starts. They're burning down his barn, right? So they go out to try and stop the barn from burning down. The son takes the initiative to run into the barn and rescue the horses and the other livestock in the barn, while his dad is trying to tell him not to do that. And he goes in to grab some feed, and his son's like pulling him away, and like a big, like a crossbar kind of comes down and almost hits them. The dad is trying to tell him not to risk his life to do these dangerous things that will help them and save the animals and save their wealth and all that sort of stuff. And he's doing it anyway, right? Because he's already more like risk taking and more, you know, a man of action than his dad is. And so then he sees the guys riding away in the distance. He sees his dad's gun, the son does. He grabs it and he pulls it up to aim. They're way too far away to hit him, but he's going to shoot at them anyway. And then his dad comes in and tells him not to, right? And he says, "I'll take care of it." And his son says, "No, you won't." Right? This is how we open the movie. His son thinks he's a pussy and has no respect for him, and that will carry through for most of the movie. Because then, when they have this criminal in custody and they're going to go to contention to make sure he comes to justice, his eldest son is like, "No, I don't trust you to do it. I'm a better shot than some of these other losers. Bring me along with you." And he says no. He doesn't really give him a good reason for saying no. He just says no, and that's that. And then, hey, what do you know? His son decides, well, I'm going to go off anyway. And so he does, and he grabs his gun, and then he comes in very conveniently in a moment later when Russell Crowe manages to get a gun and get the upper hand on his captors. Because unlike the original movie, where they arrive in contention at halfway through the movie and then spend the whole back half of the movie waiting in nervous anticipation, this movie takes forever to get to contention because we have to do all these weird side quests with
we have to
the
do a side
railroad
quest
and
through
the
Apache
Apache.
territory and the Chinese
Yeah,
work
and
camp building the railroad, and Ben
it's a
Ford's
much
gonna
longer
escape
journey.
in the middle of the
Yeah.
night and then be recaptured once he gets to the Chinese work camp because he can't blend in with the Chinese. What was his plan?
Dude, we have so many detours, but one of the many detours along the way is that at one point, Ben Wade manages to steal a gun and get the upper hand on his captors. But look who's very conveniently right there to save the day and recapture him is his son. And his son comes up and he's got his gun pointed to Ben Wade's head. And
Oh
at
my
one
god, yeah,
point,
wait, this part bugged the shit out of me blocking wise, right? Because the way that it
Yeah.
is positioned, Ben Wade has like the three or four no, the three at this point, right? Because he's pushed Peter Fonda off the cliff and stolen his gun at this
Yes.
point, right? So he's got three guys in front of him to the right, like like eye line wise in front of him and to the right, mounted on horses, and he's aiming a gun at them. And then Dan's oldest son, Percy Jackson, shows up with a revolver and points it at Ben Wade's head, and he's standing slightly back and to the right of Ben Ford. So if Ben Ford is looking ahead, there are three horses and three men mounted right in front of him, slightly to the right. There is a kid behind him, slightly to the right, pointing a pistol at the back of his head. And when he says to him, "I don't believe you'll shoot a man you admire in the back of the head," he moves the gun slightly to the right, directly pointing at where his father and the other townspeople are, fires off a round, and then puts it back on Ben Wade's head.
Yes.
So basically,
To be clear, in case you weren't following that exactly, he's got the gun pointed at Ben Wade. Ben Wade's like, "You won't do it," and then he moves the gun away, but not up into the air, kind of off to the right, which would be directly pointed at his dad and the other guys in the logic of the scene. Fires off a shot and then points it back at his head, and none of the other guys are like, "Whoa," or anything like that, because basically, yeah, the logic and the blocking of the scene makes no sense. Yes, I
it's
understand
such
why
a
that bugged you.
huge mistake. It's so simple to correct it.
Yeah, that's a very simple fix. But basically, he says, "What the hell are you doing here? Now I don't think you're going to shoot a man you admire in the back of the head, boy. He says, "Dan, tell your boy it's over." And Dan says, "You think you can keep your gun on him, William?" And instead of William, because if they liked each other, he'd be like, "Yeah, Dad," or something, or like, "Yeah, I
Sure
got him," or
can,
something like that. He
Pop.
says, yeah, or whatever he might say. He says, "I'm doing a damn sight better than you did." Dude, dude,
Fuck you, Dad. Cut
it's
my
like
life into pieces.
you're such a pussy, Dad. Like that's his whole thing essentially. And then so now he's along for the journey, right? Because he helped save them, and so his dad isn't even really telling him to go back home at this point. He's just along for the trip. And so now the Ben Wade, they're at a campfire at night because it's going to take us forever to get to contention. Thank you to Georges Rex who pointed out correctly the contentions is only about 30 miles from Bisbee, and it takes them several days in the remake to get there, even though they're riding horses. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Makes a lot more sense in the original actually, because the original seems to be made by people who understand where these places are. For example, like when they go off on a journey to get sidetracked and end up like building like the transcontinental railroad, not in southern Arizona. You're not. That's not where it was, you dingus. It was quite a bit further north than that, because it was aiming for
Yeah.
Sacramento and
To
San Francisco
to be
and that
clear,
sort of
a
region.
fit horse like these ones would probably take about 4 to 8 hours to travel 30 miles.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're walking them, even if you're not
maybe,
really,
maybe a
yeah.
day.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense than the original. Go figure. And like that whole, it just sort of hit me all at once how much that like whole interlude with the railroad makes zero sense given where they
Oh
are.
fuck yeah! Wait, that's right. That's not. It's not. It doesn't go through Arizona, does it? That would be Route 66, pretty much, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like okay, so they already have a railroad where they are, for one, and like the
Oh wait, yeah. The
mountains,
whole point is that they're go. Oh my god.
they already
The whole
they already have
point
a
is that
railroad where they
the
are.
whole point is that they're going to a train. They have to catch the train. There's timetables. Oh,
Yeah. Let's see. Like when hold on, let me just remind myself when was the Transcontinental Railroad finished? 1869. Yeah, this is like 1880s or something like that as well.
no, it's got to be closer because like he didn't. He lost his leg in the Civil War, and
Yeah,
he said
and
he's
he's
been
a bit
standing
older
on one
now.
leg for what, like 6 years.
Oh.
So it's got to be 71, basically, at the latest.
Uh okay. Well, not in the original it isn't. But anyway, they're a
Well,
little
because he doesn't
confused.
have a fake leg in the original. He's not like we didn't include the fake leg
Yeah.
for some reason. We didn't also make him a cripple and a cuck and have his kid hate him. Like we weren't just beating him up in the original one for laughs. Like
Yeah. Uh Silly Raccoon says, "I think the only thing I liked about the remake was Ben Foster." Yeah.
yeah, okay, well let's talk about that one, right? Cuz like
Briefly, then we'll come back to the son
yeah.
because Ben Foster is Ben Wade's number 2 guy in the remake anyway. Is he named in the
I don't remember him being named in the original, but I do remember that the what do they call him, like Charlie Princess or something in the
Charlie
remake.
Prince? Oh, there is a Charlie Prince character in the original.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's playing the same guy. He's playing the number two man, right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, but, Ben Foster in the remake plays Ben Wade's number 2 guy who is, like, kind of infatuated with Ben Wade, in a sort of, like, the way people kind of describe the Joker in The Dark Knight is kind of like a little bit being in love with Batman, being obsessed with him. It's a similar,
Similar.
it's
Yeah.
a similar sort of thing where it's like slightly gay coded, but not super gay, you know, like. But Ben Foster gives a really great performance, and he is kind of like a little weasel in his own sort of way. And so like I like him in it. He gives a good performance, and there's something slightly interesting there. The movie, because we're adding a whole 30 minutes of runtime, is certainly giving more time to the gang. For example, in the original, we don't see the gang catch up with the coach and like reveal that they've been had. You know what I mean? The switcheroo. We don't see that in the original, but we do see it here, for example. And Ben Foster gives a good performance, so it's nice to see that. He's good.
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. I do like him. I like his performance. He's more okay, but the character difference between the original one, because he's like same guys in the original one, right?
Yeah,
He is kind of like the wild leader, or like the sort of wild second in command. He's a little bit more loose with the morality in the original one, but he's more just sort of like a dedicated lieutenant in
yeah,
the original one, as opposed to the more sadistic, almost representative of all the worst aspects of Ben Wade. Like it's Ben Wade but unchained, untethered from the rest of the things, right? Like this is what
yeah.
Charlie Prince represents in the remake. And like there's some like interesting element to be found in doing that, but I don't know that it's I'm really not sure that it's like worth what we end like how it ends up being executed. I don't, not really.
He gives a fine performance, and he's kind of interesting as a character. Like Georges Rex says, like he was going for filial affection. He says, and it's like, yeah, I believe that's what he thinks he did. I'm choosing to read into it that he's a little gay for him, just because
Yeah,
that's funny to me.
codependent psychopath, like, yeah, like the unsubs in Criminal Minds, when there's two of them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. And he's interesting, I guess,
yeah.
but I don't like the we've upped how vicious and psychopathic they are to kind of a cartoonish degree overall.
And
It
that's going to create a lot of problems, especially in the back half of the movie. With the final action set piece, the logic behind it and behind the characters' actions that they're taking becomes a real issue later because of how sadistic they decided to make him in this one. I think that's really, and we'll get to that once we're more ready to talk about the final shootout, the differences between the final shootouts. But
that'll be where we end things.
yeah,
Let's keep going with the characters. We're talking about the son. Now the son has joined the group in the remake after saving the day very conveniently. How lucky that he arrived just at that right moment, or else Ben Wade would have been gone, and there goes the whole movie. But there he is. He's arrived. Um, and so now he's part of the group. They're hanging out around a campfire, and Ben Wade is basically in his own non-sexually, of course, trying to seduce the son now with like promises of like the outlaw life. He says, what does he say? He's talking about, have you ever been to Dodge? He says, meanest, most beautiful, dirty city there ever was. Saloon was just overflowing with cattle drivers and road agents, prospectors, gunslingers, gamblers, and women. Women who'll do things to you you'll never forget. They'll give you a disease you'll never forget. I think,
that's Alan Tiddick's
yeah, that's
chiming
what
in.
he
Yeah,
says. But he's basically like, look, the outlaw life, isn't it cool and fun? Isn't it like badass and
don't you
heroic?
want to
And
be like
like
slinging
me,
bullets and banging hookers and doing blow, kid? Like, what are you doing
yeah.
with this pussy father of yours with one leg and no wife, or one leg and a wife who doesn't love him? Like, wouldn't you
And
rather
just
do
like the
this?
wife, this is kind of working on him as well
Yeah,
because he has no respect for his dad, essentially. And so they get into an argument, blah blah blah. We do some of the same stuff we did in the original, but not as good. He's like, and this is where I don't like Ben Wade in this movie really all that much. For example, he starts talking at one point. And he says, "I gotta take a piss," and so Christian Bale goes to accompany him while he pees, and he says, "I really thought he was gonna do it." There's a wildness in his eyes. He's talking about his son. He says, "It reminds me of," and he says, "He's gonna be nothing like you, Wade." And he said, "Williams got a head start on the path of decency." And Wade says, "Yeah, that's why I don't mess around with doing anything good, Dan. You do one good deed for somebody. I imagine it's habit forming." It's like, I
what?
don't,
Oh, come
this just
on,
feels
man. Like
fake,
that feels
this
fake, and
doesn't,
also like that's entirely contradictory to what ends up happening in the original one, right? Where like the whole thing is
yes.
that he does have his own code of virtue. He has his own code of ethics and operation. We didn't talk about this, but when in both movies, right? When Dan confronts Ben Wade in the bar where he's just seduced
Mhm.
the bartender, Ben Wade offers up money to Dan for his time, right? Because
Yeah.
he gives him and I mean it's such a great scene. Oh my god, it's so good, right? Okay, so it's just like he says, like, oh well, driving my cattle back that took good amount of time out of like it took me half a day to do that, and he's just like, how much do you get paid for a day's work? He says, well, when I hire out $2. He goes, well, here's $2 for a full day, right?
For a half day.
For a half day, and he gives it to
Yeah.
him, and he says, and you know what? Here's two more for each of your boys in the original one. In the original one,
Yes.
Ben Wade offers it up again, and you know what? Here's two more for each of your boys because I used up your boys' time too. And then he says basically it's just and is there anything else that I can remunerate you for? He goes, well, if you're asking, you could give me another $5 for making me nervous. Like it's kind of a
Yeah.
joke. It's a little bit of
Yeah.
he's playing off of the like almost camaraderie that they've already developed because like this guy is not what he expected, right? He's like,
Mm.
but he's also doing this as a way to distract him so that the law can come in and put
Yes.
and put guns on him. So it's like he's just as clever and charming in a different kind of way, like he's not as
As Ben Wade.
seductive.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. So here's another big difference because we're changing all the finer details in ways that make no sense to me. So in the remake, he comes into the bar after getting into an argument with his debtor about his land and blah blah blah. He comes into the bar, sees Ben Wade, the guy who, robbed the stagecoach, killed that guy, whatever, inconvenienced him with his cattle and stole his horses, blah blah blah. He says, like, "Oh, you got your horses back, didn't you?" And then Christian Bale is like, like, "Hey, I believe you owe me money too for my time or whatever." So then what that does essentially is make it less something that Ben Wade was offering of his own volition because he does have a sort of code of ethics, right?
Yeah.
And more something that Christian Bale is just doing for money because he needs money and he's desperate for money. But also in this scene, Christian Bale is not here because he's working with the law to catch him. He just happens to be here, right? And
Yeah.
then he gets roped into it once they arrest him. Like as he's talking to Ben Wade, he sees the marshals show up and go like, "Huh, that's weird." And then they
Yeah, well,
arrest him.
and then he goes like, and also you better give me another $5 for making me nervous, which doesn't sound like something a nervous person would say,
No, it sounds
right?
like more of like a "fuck you"
Yeah,
sort of thing.
and
Whereas in the original, he's there specifically with the marshals to distract him to make sure they can catch him. So he goes in and is talking to him, and then Ben Wade offers him the money, and then he's like, "Well, since you're at it, maybe some money for my cattle and like for making me nervous." And that distracts him long enough for the marshals to come in because he's working with them. He's
yes,
already on board the plan. He's already trying to do the right thing. Like, that's a big difference as well.
big,
Yeah.
huge,
Huge even.
huge difference. Yeah, no, it's a big deal to change that up like that, and to have him put the price on it, right? Like to have Christian Bale say, "Well, I'll help you for $200," like as opposed to like volunteering when he hears that there is going to be a couple $100 on offer for him, right? Like it's
Yes.
small, but it's starting to add up. All of the tiny
Oh, yeah.
changes are really adding up. Okay, so the son. Do we want to finish that storyline out, or do we want to jump over to the stagecoach
Because
manager and talk about the differences there? 'Cause those are smaller, but also
yeah, because the
important.
next time the kid comes up, like, we sort of hinted at it already, but the only thing I kinda like about the son in this movie, because he starts off really hating his dad and thinking he's a total cuck loser, and that kind of sucks and is annoying. Though, to be fair, by the end of the movie, he does see that his dad has got some balls on him and he's willing to sacrifice himself, and so he does gain some respect for him. That's
Yes,
something.
that is
I
something.
don't I don't hate that.
I
That's
don't hate
why
that aspect.
that kind of stuff is like what raises the movie to a 5 out of 10 because it's like an okay movie. It's just that a lot of the changes are worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Actually,
jump.
real quick before we do that, right? Because Georgius is saying, I don't know if he lives by a code as much as he doesn't look to multiply troubles. He's quiet and patient. He pays out 6 if it means avoiding a hothead. That's definitely a part of it. But in the original
Sure.
one, you definitely get the sense that he has some level of what he considers honor, right? Like
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's
certainly,
another big
because the
change
whole
with like the fact that he charges a stagecoach in the remake and gets 5 people killed, right? But like in the original one, it's like he's not trying. He's not actually trying to hurt anybody. He doesn't want to kill anyone if he doesn't have to, and he only
he's a thief
feels
and he's a
yeah,
scoundrel, but he's not like a sadistic killer who's killing
yeah.
people for fun and because they insult him and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and or they
He's just
annoy him by singing a song, right, at a
yes.
campfire. He's not doing that
Mhm.
kind of thing. He's not that kind of person. He is intimidating and he will kill you if it means that it's for his benefit. But he's
Yeah.
not just out here to kill anyone and everybody just because he can, right? Or
No, he
because
just
it's the
wants
easiest
easy money
option.
because he doesn't wanna work for anything, and he wants the, like, the outlaw sort of hedonist life. That's what he wants,
Yeah.
right? And he's just gonna do whatever he doesn't believe in making an honest living or taking on difficult responsibilities because it's the right thing to do, right? But if he didn't have a code that sort of communicated to him something about honor and respectability and dignity and all that sort of stuff, the ending of the movie doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
he clearly has something
Yeah,
there.
there is something there. Now in the
And so
remake they've
the mo
replaced a good amount of that with him just randomly quoting Bible verses. And we'll get to why he's doing that when we get to the ending, and it's
but they
yeah,
make him too much worse of a person to justify how the ending plays out at first, but, we'll get to it.
at
Let's
first.
jump to the stagecoach. A little some so the stagecoach operator, Mr. Butterfield, in the original, he seems like a good guy. He's the owner of this stagecoach. They're transporting money from, well, Bisbee to wherever, I don't remember. And then, they get robbed. And Mr. Butterfield is like trying to get people to help him bring this guy to justice, right? And he's offering them money to do so. But they all want to do it basically because it's the right thing to do, including Mr. Butterfield, right?
Yeah.
He's not just in it for the money. And by like Mr. Butterfield will stick with the plan to get this guy pretty late in the movie. Like when all hope seems lost for most other people, Mr. Butterfield is like still there until the very, very, very end. And even it's like the final move that Mr. Butterfield makes is to say like, listen, Dan, I think we're fucked here. I think we're all gonna get killed and nothing's gonna come of this. So listen, you like if you're really desperate for the $200, I'll just give it to you. Like I appreciate all that you've done so far. I just don't think there's a way we can win here. So I'll pay you anyway, just because it's the right thing to do. And Van Heflin is like, no, I'm gonna see this through, right? Because he's the selfless hero and all that. But Mr. Butterfield is a good person in the
Yes.
original movie.
And critically, in the original movie, when he does offer that, it is believable that it will end things if he does do that and they just walk away. That is a
Yeah.
critical aspect of how it makes sense for him to turn like away from the plan because he's afraid, right?
Yeah.
That is
I mean, and
absolutely
it's not
crucial.
and so I really want to make a fine point of this here because Mr. Butterfield, obviously, he's a businessman. He cares about his money and he's offering money to see this guy brought to justice because he's robbed him, but not just because of that, because of all the other things he's done.
Well, and
But he's
also
even
because he's
willing
robbed all of his customers and he's looking out for his customers because he's a good
exactly,
businessman, you know?
exactly. And also he's willing to pay Dan for everything he's $200 in like 1880. That's
A lot of,
thousands.
yeah, that's a lot of fucking money.
Thousands of dollars just even for not doing it at this point. He's not a greedy, ruthless capitalist, I think you could say. So what's he like in the remake, Hugh?
Well, he's a greedy, ruthless capitalist.
Oh, damn. That's a step down, I would say. It's said this is all part of the overall strategy of bringing all the people that would be heroes or normal people down so will feel better about
Liking
liking with
Ben,
and
yeah.
thinking Ben Wade is cool. That's what the remake does. The Mr. Butterfield sucks. Like the first example where we really see this is in a conversation in the bar, in the saloon, where Mr. Butterfield basically like says all the reasons that Ben Wade needs to be brought to justice, and he does, and Ben Wade, in a sly sort of like biting remark, says that Mr. Butterfield notice how he didn't mention all the people I killed. as if to say, "Ah, see, Mr. Butterfield only cares about his money and the stagecoaches that have been robbed and his business and his bottom line. He doesn't even care about the murderers." And then the movie will go on to basically validate that as a description of who Mr. Butterfield is over the rest of the movie. Because everyone needs to be brought down so we can empathize more with and think the villain is cool. And I don't agree.
Now,
I
you
disagree
can think
there.
the Glenn Ford version of the character is cool because he is. He's a smooth talker, like Jay pointed out, he has finesse.
Yeah.
There
There
like
are things that are admirable about him, but he's still evil and needs to be brought to justice in the movie. Like no one ever really wavers from that.
yeah.
You know? No one ever thinks that like, oh, maybe he's not as bad. There is no moral equivocation in the 57 movie. Surprise, surprise. But there is a ton of it in the remake. For example, like, the one of the guys who goes along the journey in the 57 movie is the guy who burned down um, Christian Bale's barn, right? So he's along for the ride, and he's like, but Ben Wade is like, oh, like the movie is constantly like, see, this guy sucks, and because this guy sucks and is annoying and is cringe, then maybe we won't feel as bad or think it's actually maybe a little bit justified when Ben Wade ruthlessly kills him, you know. And same with the stagecoach driver. The stagecoach driver who gets shot, that they bring him along for the journey, or he's the hired mercenary working with the Pinkertons to protect the stagecoach. He gets shot, but he's going along for the journey because he's still alive. And Ben Wade is talking to him, and he's like, I don't want to talk to you. You're boring. You don't interest me. And when he's talking to the others about this guy, and I forget exactly what he says, but he says something to the effect of like, I've seen this guy murder a bunch of
Oh yeah, he
innocent
murdered a
women
bunch
and
of
children,
innocent
Apaches.
a bunch of innocent women and children Apaches.
Yes. And then that guy's like, listen, they were like killing us indiscriminately and scalping us. And Ben Wade's like, yeah, but you killed innocent women and children too. Conveniently, he was there for this, for the sake of this plot point,
Yeah.
but he was
Oh,
there
there's a
and
couple of
saw.
things like that I'm just yeah. The implication really here, right, is that for whatever reason, Ben Wade watched a bunch of Pinkertons or whoever, whoever this guy is, right? Ben
Yeah.
Wade watched him kill a bunch of women and children. It's somehow he was just like a fly on the wall. Like, did he participate? Did he object? We don't know. We know is that he saw it, and it must be true because America evil. So there you go. Don't you feel
Yeah.
silly?
And so basically, now when Ben Wade kills him, it's like, oh, well, that guy kind of sucked too, in a way. There's a whole bunch of moral equivocation. Like, is Ben Wade really that bad compared to these other guys? Like, that's a solid 40% of the runtime of this movie is trying to make that argument. It gets very tiresome, I
Oh,
would say.
very tiresome.
Yes.
Because we've
So,
torn down. So the trailer that's playing in the background right now kind of sums it all up, right? Because it's telling you in its like lines, yeah, the words on the like that flash up in between the scenes. In a lawless land, in a land of heartless men, the code a man lives by could be the code a man dies by. That's like the fact that we've called it, oh, it's a lawless land and a land of heartless men. That's not what the original one was.
no, and that's not what the reality of the
That
time period was
no,
at all.
no,
Of
no, it
course
is
not.
not.
Yes. Yeah. So let's get back to Mr. Butterfield. I'm trying to remember like where we conclude things with Mr. Butterfield in the remake
It's
because
basically kind of the same thing. He does offer to pay him the money at the end to just walk away. Okay, all right, yeah, we've got to get into this one now, like to the shootout stuff, because this is really where it all
comes
comes
together.
together, especially for like the stakes and everything. Right, so once they're in contention in the remake, once they're in contention, what ends up happening is they hole up at a hotel. And this is in both, right? They hole up at a hotel, and they are basically like trying to hide there from Ben Wade's gang until 3:10. And in the original one, there's some tension about whether or not they will find out that that's where they are. They're like, they've been very quiet, very hush hush about it. They've snuck around and managed to escape one of them who was sleeping on the sofa in the parlor down there, right? And the because the hotel owner in the original one is a good guy, he doesn't wake like he doesn't wake this random drifter up to tell him like, oh, by the way, these guys are bringing an outlaw into town. You know, like he doesn't tell him that
Yeah.
that's happening. So the guy almost gets figures out or they almost get away with it until circumstances go wrong, right? But once they're holed up in the hotel and once Ben Wade's gang knows that they're there, a dozen outlaws are going to descend on the hotel in the original one, and they've Mr. Butterfield has gone out to find the marshal of the town, the sheriff of the town, to round up a posse to defend the hotel against the outlaws, or to at least help them if Ben Wade's gang, or when Ben Wade's gang gets into town. They managed to get 5 men. And in the original one, there's 5 men against a dozen. It's overwhelming odds in favor of the Ben Wade gang, right? So the 5 men, the sheriff and the rest of the posse, they all kind of go like, "Oh, yeah, look, we're all I didn't sign up. Like we have families, you know, like we can't fight. We didn't sign up to fight a war against these guys." Right?
Yes, and also there's even a line, it's something to the effect of like, "Why'd you have to this is contention, like, why'd you have to bring your Bisbee problems here?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, we didn't ask for any of this, essentially. And it's hard to blame them considering the odds, right?
Yeah.
Because I think one of them says in the original, it's like, "Well, if it was a fair fight,"
Yeah.
you know, but
Well, he says that again in the sequel. They say that line does come back, but it's so much stupider. Okay, so like okay, or not in the sequel, in the remake, right? But those 5 guys, they leave the hotel, they abandon the cause before the gang has showed up. They know that there's a bunch coming. You know, there's at least 10 or 12, and they're like, "That's not a fair fight. We can't do this. We're gonna leave." Right? And so they walk away, despite the protestations of the rest of the crew. All right. In the remake, same basic thing happens. The sheriff manages to get enough people that it makes 5 for the group. 7 outlaws, because remember, 5 of them are dead after the beginning of the movie. 5 of them have died in the stagecoach thing. So there are 5 men against 7 outlaws coming into town, which is obviously not going to work for the whole, like, if it was a fair fight, because then they'd all look like absolute pussies, because it's like, okay, well, 2 good shots, and now it's even, right? Like, and you're in a fortified position. Actually, if I've got 5 and there are 7, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but, like, I'm feeling better about my chances, right? And the movie realizes this. So the Ben Wade gang rides in, and, like, they all line up in the street outside the hotel. And the marshals dig in. They're like, "All right, we'll take up positions. You know, this is what we're gonna do. We're all set, right?" But how do we? So we need to solve the problem, because we can't just like have it be. Because my thought was, oh, they're gonna go for an actual shootout then, I guess. So they're just not gonna leave. They're not gonna try to abandon the hotel. They're not gonna abandon the cause. Okay, like that's less interesting to me. But especially because like it's giving our main character, like if he's the only one standing at the end of it, and now they're not going to abandon the cause, that's going to take away from some of the overall message of the movie. But okay, like if you want the shootout, I guess that's what you're going for, right? But no, that's not how they're going to resolve it. They're not going to resolve it with that being the action set piece. What they're going to resolve, how they're going to resolve it, is the Ben Wade gang then, like even though there's only 7 of them, and it could be an easy fight, right? The Ben Wade gang goes, "All right, everybody, listen up, everybody in this town. Ben Wade is in that hotel, and we're his buddies. And if any one of you shoots one of the people holding him captive," which, keep in mind, at least 3 of them are their own sheriff, and 2 members, maybe even more, I think there might be like 4 or 5, that are members of the town, the community members of this town. Any one of you shoots those guys, we'll give you $200. And like everybody in the town, it seems like there's like at least a dozen people in the town who all just like grab guns to come and do this thing.
Yeah, because everyone in the town sucks,
Yeah.
essentially. That's another change from the original. Like, that just wouldn't happen. I don't know how else to put it. It's it's very cynical and unrealistic,
Yeah,
and
like
the
all of these people who know this marshal and all of the and like the men who are there to defend it, right? They all just go like, $200, I'll kill my neighbor for that. Hell yeah. And they line up to do
yeah.
it. So now the marshal and the sheriffs, now this turns the tide against them. We've gotten back to the point that the original achieved without having to do all these extra steps, right? Because we didn't kill 5 people in the opening set piece, right? So the marshal then goes, "Well, shit, man, that's not a fair fight. We got to get out of here. I'm leaving. You know, we're all family men. We can't deal with this. This is like, yeah. Everybody hold your fire. We're coming out." Now, I don't know why they would expect that if these people in this town are so willing to shoot them over $200, I don't know why they would expect that surrendering when they've got like if greed is going to get them to do it. Why would you think that when like they won't just shoot you as soon as you poke your head out the door?
Good question.
But for some reason they do. So they all, they put their hands up. They throw their guns down. They put their hands up. They're like, "Hey, don't shoot. We're coming out." And they walk out and they get gunned down in the street by the outlaw gang. So we realize now they don't accept surrender. They're going to shoot you no matter what. Why does Mr. Butterfield think it is an option to walk away at this point?
Good question.
They're just going to
It
shoot you.
isn't.
You just
Yes.
saw what's going to happen if you try to walk away. They're just going to kill you. You're cooked. You're in it for
Too
good.
late now.
It's too
Yeah.
late. You don't get to back out now. You don't get to say, "Hey man, look, I'll still pay you the 200, but you can just go home. It's not worth it."
Yeah.
They're going to kill you.
Yeah.
They've just shown they're going to kill you no matter what. And everybody in the town might just kill you anyway because they've been offered $200 to do it.
Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
Why? It's so stupid. It is the stupidest part of the movie, and I'm including the Luke Wilson electrocuting Ben Wade's balls with a car battery for some reason, right? Like I'm including that. This is the stupidest part of the movie. It's a terrible change, and it makes everything worse. It drags the whole thing down, right? Because they have no reason to believe that they won't get killed. They can't back out. So now this whole plot where it's just like, shit, man, like you could back out if you want to. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, and it kind of changes the fundamental moral problem, right? Because now Mr. Butterfield is stupid for thinking he can give up instead of like just looking out for his own, his life and best interests, right? Now he's just an idiot instead of someone who is just unwilling to go the extra mile for this, you know, rather extraordinary sacrifice.
Yeah. And we're also going to
And
learn that the community members are pretty trigger happy and they don't really much care who they hit, right? Once the shooting
yeah,
starts.
they're just it turns out okay, so here's the other big tonal and sort of genre change with the movie is that the original is like suspenseful. It's a suspenseful movie. There's a lot of anticipation. There's a lot of waiting for this big thing to happen at the end, and like we've set up this scenario, and we're just waiting for things like for the other shoe to drop, basically, right? It's a bit more like a Quentin Tarantino scene, like when
Like the bar in Inglourious
they're in
Bastards.
the basement of
Yeah,
Inglorious
exactly,
Bastards, right?
exactly.
Exactly. Like you're just waiting for things to go wrong, and you're just waiting for that clock strike, and then everything's going to come together, right? In this, it's an action movie now, and every single chance they get, they take the opportunity to make a dumb action set piece out of what would otherwise be like a small, simple, straightforward character moment. All the subtlety is gone, all the character stuff, it's gone. Now, at the end, it's like they have this big shootout where they're like jumping down from rooftops and sliding down the roofs and running through, and there's bullets flying, and we're doing slow mo, and they're running together. And so here's the other thing, right? In the original, when they get to this final shootout, everyone else, it's just him and it's just Ben Wade. And they're moving stealthily, slowly, like between buildings and stuff like that, trying to get to the train station with like, with minimal casualties and all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of like a stealth game almost, more so anyway. They kind of like find people one on
Yeah.
one because they're like spread out around the city because there's only 12 of them and it's around the whole town, right? And so they're kind of slinking around and stuff like that. And because of that, he can have like one arm on Ben Wade and like the other with the gun and sort of like move through the city slowly. In the remake, because the action is so spectacular, it basically relies on Ben Wade sticking with him the whole time for no reason
Yeah.
because he hasn't made the choice yet to ultimately spare Christian Bale or like
Yep.
to help him or do anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like he hasn't made any decision. He's not on his side yet, right? He hasn't ultimately decided that, you know what, I do have some respect for you, blah, blah, blah. None of that has happened yet. And so basically, the only reason he's still captured throughout this whole fight scene is because he chooses to run with him for reasons that make no sense. Because they have this big, giant, like Jason Bourne style action set piece where they're running all over the place and jumping all over.
Dodging
And it's,
bullets left and right,
yeah, it's really
and,
dumb.
and so the
It's
other
really,
thing, right, is that like, in the original one where it's Ben Wade's gang, they don't want Ben Wade harmed, right? They
no,
don't
they
want to
don't.
shoot him. So by keeping him close, he's maintaining his own safety, right? But because the remake did that thing where it's like, oh well, you just shoot somebody for $200, the townspeople don't know who, and to their credit, they include this in the movie because obviously this would happen, right? They're not just shooting at Christian Bale's character; they're also shooting at at Russell Crowe, right?
Yes, because they're right next to each
Because they're
other.
right next to each other. They don't know which is which, really. Like they can't. They're too stupid to be able to see handcuffs, I guess. Like and too greedy. They've got dollar signs in their eyes. They can't see the handcuffs. So they're shooting willy nilly at both of them, and so that's creating more of the action. But the difference is that in the original one, it's like, okay, if he lets Ben Wade get away from him, he's in serious danger. So he has to have his eyes on everything because nobody's going to shoot him if there's a chance that Ben Wade dies. That's a very important thing. In
Yes.
this in the remake, he's running across rooftops. They're sliding down roofs. They're doing barrel rolls and like just it's they're getting
It's
shot at.
ridiculous.
It creates a problem where Ben Foster's character has to start shooting townsfolk because they're trying to kill anybody who's moving, really, right?
Because they don't
Because
know
they don't
who.
know who the fuck these guys are. They just
Yeah.
heard shoot one of the people, get $200. So like we're just doing this like big wild over the top action thing that's completely undercut. Like it's a different thing than a suspenseful take on the march to the train station from the original. But it's just not as good. It's just not as good. It's
No,
more
it's
explosions.
I mean, I think even if yeah, I think even if, if you're bought into what this movie's doing up until this point, I think even still this whole action set piece feels kind of stupid. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like I don't think it even really works even in the absence of comparisons to the original.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
think the
Georgia says
the
also
whole
not hard to keep up with a one-legged man. You could be you could be fooled for believe like by watching this.
one-legged.
One-legged,
I'll
my
I'll, bel-
ass. He
I'll
is
believe it when I see it.
he is hauling ass, man.
Yeah.
He is not acting like he has one leg. Which again, like it begs the question, right? Like if this was where you wanted the whole thing to end up, why have him be one-legged in the first place?
'Cause that's another way of humiliating him and lowering him. That's it. I mean, that's
Yeah, that's really it. But it's like it's not even it doesn't really play into any of the decisions that he's
no.
making. or the actions that he's taking. So it's just kind of it's really just there to give some justification to the moment when Ben Wade is going to decide that he has some respect for him.
Yeah, man. Okay, so we're basically there. We're coming up on the end, right? So in the original, right? They're moving kind of slowly through the city, right? And it's just the two of them. And because part of the tension and part of what is keeping them safe when, like, they could just get gunned down at any moment, but they don't want to kill Ben Wade, obviously. So there are far fewer bullets flying. And, the scenes are a bit more tense, right? And so they eventually, like, work their way to the train platform. And there's the train coming in, billowing smoke, this big steam engine, and it looks awesome, by the way,
Yeah.
especially in black and white. It really sings. It looks great. And so his gang is there. They're hiding behind like barrels and buildings and stuff like that. And now there's kind of an open. It's like, all right, there's a bit of a standoff now, right? Because his gang is ready there at the platform, and they're like around the next corner, and they got to make a move towards the train, and they don't know what's going to happen, right? And but then the smoke from the train is sort of like filling everyone's vision, so it's giving them just that little bit extra cover, right? A
Mm-hmm.
little bit, like, because they don't want to shoot into the cloud of steam because they don't want to kill Ben Wade. And so it's him with the shotgun pointed at Ben Wade's back, moving slowly closer to the train as his gang of, I think it's 6 men at that point, are just standing there, and they're at a bit of a standoff, and the train comes to a stop, and everyone's just waiting, and the train eventually starts to move as they've realized no one's getting on. So the train keeps moving, and then there's like okay, well,
Gotta
you had
go.
your shot.
Yep.
I guess that's it. Guess that's it, right? And then uh is it Ben Wade is like, it's like, we're gonna have to jump on the train. He's
Yeah.
like, how do I know you'll jump? And he says, you're just gonna have to trust me. And then they both jump onto the train, right?
Yep.
So now Ben and Dan are both on the train. And why? Because Ben willingly jumped onto the train. And so I want to get the exact lines. So it says, you'll have to trust me on this one, jump. And then he says, why'd you do it, Ben? He says, I don't like owing anybody any favors, and you saved my life back at the hotel. Besides, I've broken out of Yuma before. Right? So
Yeah.
that's his justification in the original. Let's break that down a little bit, right? So he has a little bit of a code, right? And what is going unsaid here is that Ben Wade respects Dan a little bit in the original for all that he's been willing to do and all that he's been willing to risk of his own life and his family and everything just to see him put away. He doesn't want him gunned down for it, right? It's not in his best interest to put himself on the train ultimately, but he doesn't want to see Dan killed, right? And then what he's saying on the surface is like, well, you saved my life before, and I don't like owing anybody anything. It's a little bit of a cover, right? It's a cover for what's going unsaid, but it's an interesting justification of its own, right? And he says like, I've broken out of Yuma before. We don't know that that's true, right? It might be true. Might not be true. It might just be something he's saying because he's like, well, this isn't the end for me anyway. I'll find a way out. I always find a way out. He's like believing in himself as like a smooth talker and like and all that sort of stuff. I'll be all right. I just don't want to see Dan get killed after everything. It inspires not like a willingness to turn himself in so much as just like, well, I don't want to see him killed after everything, right? And so he jumps on the train, right? And so ultimately, the goodness of Dan and his heroism and his self-sacrifice does help convince um, Ben Wade not to just let him get killed by his gang, right? And he's like, I've busted out of Yuma before, right? And that's what he tells himself. And like I said, we don't really know that that's true ultimately, but that's how we leave it. And then Ben says, no, not Ben. Dan says, "Well, my job's finished when I get you there." Right?
Yeah.
So now they're on the train. We'll come back to the very closing images in a minute. But we're sort of talking about the justification in the original of why Ben doesn't does because like you mentioned his code, right? Like he has respect for Dan and he doesn't want to see him killed at this point. And so he's like, you know what? I'll find a way to get out of the prison. It'll be fine. I don't want to see you killed by the gang, right? Because he respects him after everything he's done, right?
Yeah.
And that's it basically.
But so they get ambushed in the room at one point, and Dan
Right. Oh,
saves his
sorry, sorry,
life.
sorry, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. We glossed over that scene because that scene is not in the
it's not in
remake.
the remake, and yeah.
Annoyingly. Oh my god, you're silly right, because that is part of what's motivating his respect for him, right? So, in the original, there is the guy who's driving the stagecoach or working for the stagecoach company who gets killed. He doesn't get shot and then survive for a while. He's ultimately just killed. And at one point, they have a funeral for him in the town of
Because he was
Contention.
from Contention. That's where he was from. His
Exactly.
family is having a funeral, and his brother, who we meet as a character, is in the funeral procession. And he finds out that Ben Wade is in the hotel. So he gets drunk, and he goes
Uh-huh.
up there to,
Guns blazing.
yeah,
Thankfully.
guns blazing, yeah, to kill him. Because
Yes.
Ben Wade killed his brother. And
Yeah.
oh my god, I can't believe we forgot to talk about this, because like that's how they find out that that's where he is. That's how they
Yes.
find out that Ben Wade is in that room.
Yes.
God
Because
damn it.
there is one guy because Ben Wade's gang in the original is pretty smart, and when one of their guys gets captured, they all kind of spread out to the various places that one might be sent. Send like one guy ahead, and so his number two guy is there in the hotel, right? And then the way he finds out that Ben Wade is in that room is because the brother, is it the brother, right?
Yeah, it's the brother of the stagecoach driver. He tries to shoot him, and
He
uh
tries to just kill him on the spot, and he's like, "No, no, no! He's going to be arrested and sent to prison." He tries to shoot him on the spot, and then the shot rings out, and that alerts the attention of his number two guy, who then
but Dan
discovers that.
disarms him. Dan
Yeah,
disarms him as the shot goes off, and that alerts the attention of the number two guy, who looks up the window and then sees Ben Wade like walks, like it sees him, and
yeah,
then he rides off to tell the rest that that's where he is.
yeah. And Georges Rex brings up another interesting point: is that he's mad at Butterfield for not going to the funeral, right?
Yeah.
These, which is interesting because I like it when movies like have like conflict where like both characters are kind of right in their own way,
Yeah.
because he's right to be upset at Butterfield for not showing up to the funeral, but he doesn't know that Butterfield's on this whole other quest to make sure this guy gets brought to justice, right? So they're both like neither are wrong, but the conflict makes sense and it's interesting, you know, right? Dude, it's so good. And
Yeah.
so let's see if I can I want to see. I want to get the exact. Like, oh, I was saying, Mr. Butterfield, things come to a pretty pass when the boss can't bother to go to a man's funeral, and he's trying to explain. You know, is- he's like, as for your soul, Mr. Butterfield, I feel you'll have a need to cool it in a hotter place than this. He basically is saying, Mr. Butterfield, you're going to go to hell, right?
Yeah.
And then they're talking about the money and everything, and then he basically disarms him to prevent him from killing him because they're like, no, he's going to be brought to justice, and I'm not going to allow you to just kill him outright here. We've come too far, and like we're going to get a reward for it, and all this other stuff. Like, no, you can't kill him right here. So he does save Ben Wade's life, and so at the end, when he's like, after everything that's happened, after he's seen what Dan is willing to do the right thing, and the fact that he's saved his life to make sure he's brought to justice, he's like, nah, I can't just see my guys gun him down. Like that wouldn't be right. In his own twisted way, he's like, that wouldn't be right. And anyway, I've broken out of Yuma before, so like, is it really the worst thing in the world? I'll just go. You know, like there's something kind of funny about it, but also I don't know, it makes a lot of sense. It works for me. I
Yeah.
like the idea that sort of his virtue and heroism has sort of inspired just a little something in even someone like Ben Wade, you know? And now in the remake, we kind of
We cut
hint at some of these
yeah.
things.
But we cut that whole
That's it.
that whole bit of conflict is gone.
No, yeah, that's gone.
That's entirely devoid. Like how do oh, yeah, let's talk about how they find out where Ben Wade is in the remake.
Remind me, because I'm getting them.
The
use
gang
at the moment.
chases down the stage. So, okay, you remember the plan is explained in the original. It's not explained in the remake, but the plan is to lead them away with the stagecoach, where that they think he might be in. They're gonna, run a bait and switch, and there are three possible things that they could do with Ben Wade, right? And they go, okay, well, they might think we would take him here to do this. They might think we would take him here to do this, or they might think that we would take him to contention to put him on the 310 to Yuma. And so they
Yeah.
say, okay, well, we're gonna make it seem like we're sending him, one way. We're gonna distract whoever might be watching us with the stagecoach, and then we're gonna secret him out of it, and then we will sneak off to contention under cover of darkness, right?
Time we get there, we get him on the train. Like
We'll
they'll be
hide
none the
him. Yeah, we'll
wiser.
hide him in the
Yeah.
hotel, and then they'll be none the wiser. And we find out that the contention plan or the contingency plan, that's the word I was looking for. But from the
Yes.
contingency plan from Ben Wade's gang is, well,
Pretty clever.
pretty
Honestly.
clever. Basically, it's like, oh, we anticipated the exact same three things, like the heroes said they would, right? And it was like, so we have one guy go to each place and wait to see if that's where I'll be. And then they'll ride off and get the others. And so that's what ends up happening. They do catch the stagecoach and they find out that he's not theirs, but they send him to one of those. They send people to each one of those three places to see if that's where he's going to be. In the remake, we see them catch the stagecoach, and then there's a guy, an armed man in the stagecoach, who tries to fight him off, but he's really bad at it. Actually, he's like somehow I can't even remember. Like I can't even explain how mad this makes me, right? Because it's a blocking issue. Again, he shoots somebody or shoots at somebody out of the window, and then the next thing you know, somehow he's pressed up against the other back window of the stagecoach, and they manage to disarm him in the stagecoach by sneaking up behind him. Which it doesn't make any fucking sense. But anyway, they set the stagecoach on fire with him in it and force him to tell them where they took him. If you want us to let you out, you better tell us where he is. And so at first he says, no, fuck you. And then the fire starts to get to him. He's like, okay, actually he's in contention. Never mind. Now let me out. And then they just don't let him out.
Yeah. That's not as interesting as the cat and mouse.
It's really not.
Outfoxing, outsmarting, and the sort of, that stuff is way more interesting in the original. Instead, it's just like, see, they're going to burn a man alive just to find him. And this is where we get that bit where, like, is it really worth going to get, maybe I could run this gang. And Ben Foster's like, no, no, we got to go save him. So, yeah, I don't know. We make them more cruel and sadistic, but less clever. So that's fun, I guess. Let's talk. So basically there, Hugh. So they're running. We've already gone through the bit where they try to turn the whole town against them and everything. But eventually, it's just him being Christian Bale, running Russell Crowe to the train and fighting against his gang of outlaws that are shooting at him and all. There's twists and turns in terms of the cattle and using them as a distraction and all that sort of fun stuff. But basically, we get to a scene where it's like the little building that's right next to where the train comes by, whatever you'd call that. And they get kind of stuck in there because Christian Bale gets shot in the back by Ben Foster, right? And so now he's there, and still Russell Crowe, even though he's been running with him the whole way, is like, you don't have to do this anymore, Dan. Like, dude, you could have bailed on him at any moment. Like, it's ridiculous that you didn't. But he's still doing the whole, your boy's gone. Ain't nobody watching no more. You still got that one good leg. Why don't you use it to get on home? And then, he's yelling to his gang from inside. He's like, I'm walking out. Hold your fire. And Christian Bale says, I ain't never been no hero, Wade. The only battle I seen, we was in retreat. My foot got shot off by one of my own men. Try telling that story to your boy. See how he looks at you then.
Oh, Ben Wade's on top of him, strangling him with his handcuffs, by the way.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
During this conversation, he's on top of him, strangling. He has Dan dead to rights. He is strangling him with his handcuffs.
And because he's more psychopathic, he doesn't just leave. He's like, "No, I'm gonna kill you also." It's just like lame. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and okay, so that's what he says, right? He basically just says, "Well, yeah, I didn't lose my leg being a hero. Uh,
I'm even more of a pussy than you already thought,
yeah,
dear audience member.
I'm even more of a loser.
Yes.
And my boy is right not to like me. And for some reason, this is the fact that makes it like Ben Wade takes such pity on him that he's like, "Ah, I guess I'm,
Pity. It's
yeah,
pity.
I
Yes.
guess I might as well
That's
just
what
let you
does
take me
it.
to the train."
Yeah, because like it's just so sad and pathetic that I can't have your boy thinking this of you. We need to give you a win so your boy can have a
Yeah,
win.
he's basically just like, "God damn, dude, why do you have to?" Now
That's
I'm
so
depressed.
I don't even want to kill you. That's just so
Just so
sad.
lame. You're just so pathetic. Like, God, let's get you a win. Like, he's basically just like, man, God must hate you, huh? Like, let's do something about that. Come on, man, get up. Hey, Jesus, stop crying.
Dude, yeah. And so
Embarrassing.
in the original, he's inspired by his heroism and selflessness and the fact that he saved his life and thinks, well, I can't let him just die. So I'll go to prison and I'll probably find a way to escape like I've done before and it'll be fine, but I'm not going to see this guy killed. He saved my life. Can't do that. That would be wrong. In the remake, it's like, dude, you're like really pathetic, and that's kind of bumming me out. So instead, I'm going to give you a win, so your son won't think you're that much of a pussy and a loser. I guess I'll just get on the train because I'll escape anyway, and it'll be fine because I'm badass and awesome. And man, what a step down that is. Because then they basically They're he puts him on the train, right? Because they shoot the gun off, or his son shoots the gun off, and that sends the cattle stampeding into Ben Foster and his other guys. And so he sees his son, giving him the cover, and so he's like, "Go for it!" And he's like, "Ah." So now they make a run for the train, and they're shooting, and blah blah blah. They get Ben Wade onto the train, but Ben Foster shoots Christian Bale a whole bunch in the chest. He's dead now for sure.
As Ben Wade yells out, "No,
Don't do
don't
it.
do it!"
I
Now he
he
like
was I kind of liked him for reasons that are kind of still unclear
and before
after a
okay,
whole
and
movie.
before this happens though, because there's one little bit of backstory for Ben Wade that I just found. It's one of those things that like the writer thought it sounded kind of profound, right? But when you hear it and you even just think about it for a second, it becomes entirely apparent how fucking retarded it actually is. All right, so throughout this version, the remake version of the movie, Ben Wade has been quoting Bible verses. He doesn't do that in the original one, and
No,
yet
he
somehow
doesn't.
the original one kind of like True Grit. There's one that's far more religious than the other, despite the what you would expect, right? Because like there's if the
Yeah.
Bible verses are all through the remake, you might think maybe this is more religious. It's not.
No,
Um,
it certainly
so
is
he's
not.
quoting Bible verses throughout the movie, and we find out why. Because of course we need to find out why Ben Wade reads the Bible and has it memorized, right? He asks as they're hunkered down, pinned down by fire before his son distracts them with the cattle stampede, right? Ben Wade asks Dan if he's ever read the Bible, and he tells him, I read that once. I read it one time, right? When I was a kid, my dad left us, me and my mom, so she took us down to the train station, said we were gonna go start a new life somewhere. And she took me into the train station, put me down in the seat, and said, "I'm here. I'm gonna go. Here's a Bible. Read this while I go get our tickets." He's like, "It took me 3 days to read it. She never came back." He sat there for 3 days, so distracted by reading a Bible that he didn't get he didn't get fucking hungry. He didn't get up to take a shit. He didn't wonder once he managed to get through the first 3 books, why isn't mom back yet? Nothing? He just sat there for 3 days reading the thing? Really? And that's the one time he's read it, and now he quotes it all the time? Fuck off. Dude, that is awful. Horrible.
Um, Not to go too far off track here, but I think it's relevant to the quality of the writing, right? Because that is something that is certainly not in the original short story, and it's not in the original film. Georges Rex, or I think it was someone said we should look up who. Oh, it was Silly Raccoon said, check out the two guys who wrote the adaptation. They have, well, a career. So before 310 to Yuma, the two guys, or two of the guys who wrote the screenplay for this movie, they did something you might have heard of, Hugh. It's called Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh my god, I take it back. 10 out of 10 movie, 10 out of 10 remake.
And that movie Wanted, and
Wanted?
they go on to
Oh god, they tapped the Wanted guys for this?
no, Wanted was after.
Oh shit, okay.
A year later, but then they go on to do FBI International, Countdown, Chicago PD, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire. So now they're doing network.
Oh my god, wait, no,
TV
they're not just doing network, any old network TV slop. Oh wait, no, that was 911 that I was
yeah. They all kind of blend together. I get it. So that's two things that those guys worked on. The other guy who worked on the screenplay, this was the last thing he ever did. Did a whole bunch of TV before it, like on Kojak and things like that. But yeah, not exactly the best writers. Now, I'm gonna save this. Remind me to come back to something about the writers for this movie once we get to the ending.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do.
We're gonna come back to that. Don't worry. Do not let me forget it. So, yes, he read the Bible for 3 days straight. It sounds like a cool, like, oh, he's so
man,
and good tragic backstory. Wow, abandoned by his mom, but he read that Bible, and now he's got emotional problems.
Now he's got emotional problems, and he quotes Proverbs all the time. Really affected him.
So Ben Foster shoots Christian Bale dead, and they get completely invented for this movie is Ben Wade's like super cool cursed gun.
Oh my god, that gun's got a curse on it. I forgot about that, dude.
Yeah, because it didn't matter in the story at all. But don't worry, they got his gun back, and then so Ben Foster gives his uber special gun back to Russell Crowe's Ben Wade, and he's like, "Oh, we got you your cool gun back." And so Ben Foster, I think one of the things he says is like, for like a one-legged cattle rancher, he's one tough son of a bitch, giving him some due, right, for all the work he's made them do. They give him his special gun with the cross on it. What does he do, Hugh?
He just guns down the entire rest of his team.
He just kills them.
Just kills them all.
For killing
for killing the guy who he thought was too pathetic to kill.
Yeah. He just shoots them all one by one until they're all dead. Now remember, these guys were having the whole town turn on them and saying like, "Hey, like, kill any one of them, we'll pay you $200." Like, these guys have done fully awful, psychopathic, murderous things before. They're there to rescue him, and then they kill Christian Bale, who he has been antagonistic with and was going to kill himself less than probably 90 seconds ago, until he decided, you know what? Actually, maybe you're right. Maybe you're too much of a loser to just kill. We'll get you that win. Don't worry, big dog. I got you. And then he gets killed, and he's like, you know what? Actually, my whole gang, I'm gonna kill them all, because man, he's complicated. He's like a complex character, right? When he doesn't make any sense, that's because he's complex, right? This is how that works. I wrote Too Fast, Too Furious.
I said, forget about it, cuh.
Oh man, that's really bad. I think it's really lame.
It's horrendous.
It doesn't make any sense, because then he kills them all only to then just get on the train. But
Oh,
so
okay.
he
So no,
kills.
he kills them all as an act of penance, essentially, because oh my gosh, I feel so bad that I got this guy killed. Oh man, fuck. And at any point,
And then
oh,
his
you're
son
telling
shows
me at
up.
any point I could have just told my guys like, hey, chill, just come get me in Yuma. At any point, I could have yelled out that, and they probably would have stopped because they just have so much respect for me that they literally just like would have. They literally just killed a whole town. Oh shit, man! Like, damn. Fuck. Oh, I feel so bad about that now. So of course the son, he comes to see his dad in his final moments and he points a gun at Ben Wade like he's going to kill him and Ben Wade stands there like accepting his fate, right? He basically is kind of
Yeah.
he's basically saying my life is in your hands, this is my fault almost entirely. It is my fault actually. So, you know what? My
Almost.
bad. Well,
And so
yeah.
he gets on the train of his own volition as like
When the
a
kid puts the gun away because he's like, well, my dad didn't want to kill you. My dad wanted you to get on the train, right? He wanted you to go to prison, right? So he
yeah.
gets on the train of his own volition and he puts himself in the cage, and Percy Jackson comforts his dying father as the train rides off. Russell Crowe is meditating on the Ben Wade's meditating on this. He's off to Yuma, a prison he's escaped from before. But hey, maybe he's resigned to living a better life now. Maybe he's gonna maybe he'll do some time in prison. Get to read in that Bible again. It only took him 3 days the first time. After all, he could have. Yeah, who knows?
He'll have a
Like
lot of time to read it. He'll read it several times over even.
he'll be able to read it, yeah, multiple times. He'll get some, yeah, like maybe he'll try to reform himself or at least take the punishment fitting the crime that he has
Yeah.
committed. And you know what?
No.
You know what? You could be forgiven for saying like, well, it's not quite as strong as the original one, but
It's hitting a
it's
different
hitting a
note,
different
and
note,
that's
and
interesting.
that's interesting. Until
Until he
until
whistles.
he whistles for his horse, and the horse rides off after the train, heavily implying that he's just going to jump off the train and ride away,
Immediately.
completely negating the gesture of penance that he decided to do for the kid.
Yeah, because now the kid's dad died for nothing again. And he killed his own gang members for no reason. It's just because he hasn't reformed himself in the slightest.
He doesn't actually care.
No, he's too cool to care. I'm telling you, the writers, oh, actually, the director thinks this makes him so cool. They think this is a really cool ending, and it fucking sucks. And I've decided that 5 was too generous. This is like a 4 out of 10 at best. Because this ending
At
fucking
best,
blows.
this ending is horrendous. It is like an immediately, and it's not even as if like, oh, okay, we're gonna cut forward and see him like, maybe tempted into getting back on a horse or anything like that. No, it's immediate. He basically he gets in there, he thinks about doing it for a second, and then he goes, nah, nah,
Yeah.
and then just
Dude, it's what's the point of this fucking movie? What is the point? Like okay.
I know what the
And
point of the
movie's
original one was. The point of the original one was that he gains Ben Wade's respect, and Ben Wade, does a little favor for him because he doesn't want to be owing him his life or anything. And as they ride away, Dan shoots one of the gang members off his horse. That's the only death from all of this, really.
Yeah.
Apart from Potter, right? So they get away, right? They get to Yuma, and as they're leaving on the train, he rides past his wife, waving to him on the wagon, and the
As
rain
the rain comes
starts.
down. Yes. And it's beautiful. And it's not even over because he's like, well, my job's through when you get to Yuma. Right. So like don't think you're out of here yet, kind of thing. And then he looks out the side of the train car and he sees his wife on the hill, like waiting to see if he's gonna be on the train. And then he is on the train and they wave to each other and the rain starts coming down and the title song returns and the music swells. And it's like, ba the end. Fucking excellent ending. Great movie, outstanding. Meanwhile, the remake, the best thing you could say for it is that the only thing that came out of that is that the son learned to respect his dad a little bit. because the criminal got away. Uh, he pretended like he was reformed only to go, ha, not just kidding, psych, I'm actually still really cool and awesome, and I'm gonna get away. And that's the end of the movie. Fucking
Awful.
worthless.
Absolutely worthless. Waste of time.
Worthless. Terrible. So here's the funny thing about that. On the bonus like features for the original Blu-ray, the Criterion Blu-ray anyway. I think you can find this interview on YouTube as well. Elmore Leonard, who wrote the short story, and is a big fan of the original movie. He's like, "Yeah, I love that movie. I think it turned out great." He was, very effusive of his of with his praise for the original movie, and I think rightly so. And then he mentions like they remade it a few years back, and and he goes, "I was talking to the writers, like and he's like about the ending, and he was like, I don't think that ending makes a whole lot of sense." And this is according to Elmore Leonard. The writer said, like, "Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but that's what the director wanted, so that's what we wrote." That is all James
That's
Mangold.
wow.
Can't even blame the Too Fast, Too Furious guys, I'm afraid. That was
The two,
all
well,
James
yeah, the Too Fast,
Mangold.
Too Furious guys were like, I mean, yeah, it's terrible. Too Fast, Too Furious has a better ending, unironically, than this, but this is what
Yeah.
he asked for, so we had to give it to him.
This is all James Mangold's fault. Awful, awful ending to what was otherwise just like an okay, like has some decent moments movie. Maybe average until the ending. The ending really leaves a sour taste in your mouth, or
Yeah,
it did for me anyway, and that kind of sullies the whole thing. I mean, it had some problems before that as we've gone through, but man, the ending sucks. What was the point? It's not cool, James. It's not He's not like cool and edgy. He feels like a fan fiction character now. But who's like a total psychopath and he's like, "Oh, he's complicated. Man, he's complicated. Isn't that interesting?" Like, no, I'm afraid it isn't. So Wes says Mangold states in the director's commentary that the US Army was more vicious than brigands like Ben Wade. He also decided to have the sheriff and his crew gunned down while shooting the scene. Yeah, so like it doesn't surprise me that he has some like libtarded moral equivocations about, well, the army back then was just as bad, blah blah blah. So really, is this guy even really all that bad? Isn't he cool? Like I don't know. If I feel like James Mangold made this movie a little bit with like one hand, if that makes sense.
yeah.
With the other hand on his dick. I Yeah, it's pretty kind of detestable ending, I would say, all things considered, because it kind of like wears the skin suit of a much better movie that had a much stronger moral core to it. It's kind of funny me that I've seen this clip, and I have a lot of respect for Russell Crowe, so don't take this the wrong way. But I've seen Russell Crowe talk about part of the problems with movies nowadays. I think he specifically was talking about the difference between Gladiator and Gladiator 2, because he's talked about how there are things that they wanted him to do for Gladiator, like have a sex scene with that woman, I can't remember her
Oh
name.
yeah,
And
the queen, or yeah.
they wanted him to have a sex scene. It's like, but he's like, no, but isn't this whole thing kind of about my dead wife? Like, wouldn't that kind of undermine that a little bit? And he's right. And I'm very glad they didn't do that in Gladiator, for example. And he's talked about how like a lot of modern movies, but he's specifically criticizing Gladiator too, and that's kind of nice to see someone who's actually willing to criticize things for like not having the same moral core that was part of what made Gladiator so good. Um, yeah, this movie has a very suspect moral core, if you could say it even has one at all. I think it's I don't like it. I think there's something really, it's like you take a bite of something, it's like it tastes fine at first, but then there's like a weird metallic, like, like, is there poison in this? Like that's what it tastes like watching this movie a little bit. Um, Really unsavory at the end. And oh boy, what a weird career that James Mangold has had, full of its ups and downs, I think you could say. That would be putting it mildly. Obviously, he did Ford v Ferrari. I haven't seen that, but people say good things about it. He did A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie. That movie sucked.
Oh yeah,
He
fuck
did
that movie. God
he
damn.
did he did Logan, which I haven't seen. Some people like, but some people are critical of. Have you seen Logan?
I've seen Logan. Yeah. I remember liking it at the time. I don't know if I I don't know how I would feel on a rewatch. You know.
Yeah. So he also did, he did Copland with Sylvester Stallone and Walk the Line. I remember thinking Walk the Line was good, but that was ages ago. And he also did, of course, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Who could
Of
forget
course
that
he did.
classic
Yep.
film? So, you know, quite the ups and downs. This is more down than up, I would say. I don't like the changes he made. They make me think less of him as a person. I would say. And especially, here's the other thing. Like, we talked about True Grit last time, and True Grit 2010 being one of the few remakes of that kind, like years later, that actually manages to be better, more refined, better performances, better shot, more true to the spirit of the source material, more religious. Because everything else is getting more secular and kind of amoral, and also shorter and just like
Yep.
better overall. And it's like rather remarkable. This, I don't even know why he wanted to remake 310 to Yuma. First of all, because the
It's a
original
great
is
question.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those movies that, like, I just wouldn't touch it. I'm like, why bother remaking it? It's that good. All these changes feel gross to me. Really. Feels like you're sullying something. Like that sullying it is the point even.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't care for it. Bad. Because the original, like I said, I think the original is like a 9 out of 10 movie. It just has everything you want from a movie, really. It's that good. Everything's working together. All the pieces are fitting together. Really admirable, likable characters, a really interesting, compelling villain, but without any of the sort of moral equivocation about, like, oh, is he really that bad? And because the army did some bad things to Indians or whatever, I guess. Like, shut up. The sick of
Just
it.
shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up, James. Um, any closing thoughts? We tried to time it. We blew a little past our 3 hours and 10-minute runtime goal for the stream, but we're pretty close,
Yeah, just a
honestly.
bit. We almost got there. Yeah, that's no, I think honestly, watching them back to back, it was much starker how much
Yeah,
worse the remake is. I don't know how I would have felt about it if I had watched the remake first. I might have liked it better, like in a vacuum, but I feel like
yeah.
knowing that the original is out there and is as good as it is, I can't recommend watching the remake. Just watch the original. It's so much better.
Yeah. And I think, like I mentioned before, even if you look at the remake in a vacuum, the ending still sucks.
Yeah,
I don't know how you can think the ending is cool unless you're very immature and weird.
and or James Mangold,
Well,
maybe being
okay to
redundant.
list those. Yeah, I don't know.
Look, if the Too Fast, Too Furious guys are telling you the ending doesn't make sense,
Like, well, that's what I want.
I think no. If they're telling you that, you probably should listen. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like, if even they are like, I don't get it, you might need.
I don't know that this character motivation makes a whole lot of sense, James.
It's
Yeah,
like, oh boy, the guy who wrote Tyrese in Too Fast, Too Furious is telling me that the character motivation might be off. Maybe I should look at that.
yeah.
That's what it
So
says to me.
Small Hill asks, which Western will you cover next? That's a good question.
Great
Not really
question.
sure yet. We
Not
got some
yeah.
ones on the list to cover. Unforgiven, we'll get to. Unforgiven feels like maybe like where we might conclude a Western
I
arc.
feel like that probably is for the best. Yeah.
Recently I watched the movie Shane for the first time, and I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I don't really know that it's interesting enough for a whole stream. Shane is the kind of movie that honestly probably could get remade and made even better, improved upon, because the bones of Shane are good. I like them, but the execution leaves some things to be desired. But like I said, I don't know that it's interesting enough to do a whole stream on. I think I told Hugh that, like, it's worth watching, but
Yeah. You
you don't have
definitely did.
to run out to go see it. So
I
we'll
would like
see.
to watch The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Yes, I've heard good things
Yeah.
about it, but I haven't seen it. So if that's worth talking about,
Yeah,
that
that
could
would
be
be
next on the
next
list.
week
That won't
though.
be. Yes.
We will be resuming The Disney arc with Aristocats. That I'm putting it on the
Okay.
slate. That is for
All
next
right,
week.
we're doing it. Yeah, so next Sunday, Aristocats, the Disney art continues. Matthew Leach, if you're here, I know you're big on the Disney ones. Don't worry, we're gonna keep doing
We're
those as
back.
well.
We're back,
And the Man Who
baby.
Shot Liberty Balance, I think that would be a good one to do next. I'm excited for that. Oh, fuck, Westerns. Hugh, have you seen High Noon?
No, I have not.
Dude, I watched it a couple weeks ago again. Uh, Great. That's another one I would think we should talk about because that one actually has a really interesting sort of like meta conversation around it because people think it's a metaphor for the sort of like Red Scare McCarthyism, but I don't really know that that holds up too well in
Really?
that regard. But as a metaphor for that, but it is a really good movie. So, by the way, just High Noon, great movie. Go check it out. High Noon's actually a little bit similar to this, maybe a little more cynical, but not in a way that ruins it. Um, yeah, but The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, that'll be up on the slate as well. Aristocats this Sunday. You'll see me if you're watching EFAP on Saturday talking about The Odyssey. Oh boy, can't wait to see how that turns out. We'll be talking about that on Saturday, and then if Hugh is interested in seeing, or if I
Uh,
tell Hugh that you got to talk about it, we got to talk about The Odyssey. You got to see it. Then we'll probably do a stream on that, not this weekend, but the weekend
yeah.
after,
I
or
mean,
something
I
along those
I
lines.
I could go see it if if you think that it's something that that I my perspective would be, you know.
I tell you what, I think it'll be more interesting to talk about the second weekend for us.
Okay.
You know, I'll talk about it with the FAP guys on Saturday, and we'll talk about Aristocats on Sunday because everyone's obviously clamoring for that. And then I think give it a week because I want to see how people react to it, and that will give people who do want to see it more time to see it, and blah blah blah. We'll be able to see how it's performed in its second weekend and things like that. So I think that'll be a good plan.
Sounds good.
Anyway, that's
That's
all.
all I
That's all
got.
I got. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this movie discussion. Go watch 310 to Yuma if you haven't seen it already. I promise you, we,
I
we
saw
won't have
somebody
ruined
who
it.
jumped into the chat who said, I started at the beginning, I left to go watch it. What a movie. Now I'm back to watch the stream. So, you know
Dude,
what?
what a
Great,
movie
great
indeed. Am I
decision.
right? It's only an hour and a half. It's an hour and 32 minutes. The original. Ugh, great, great pacing the whole way through. It's a breezy watch. Great, excellent movie. It'll stick with you. Highly recommend it. Don't bother with the remake. And that's all I got for you. Thanks again for the super chats. We certainly appreciate those.
As
And
always.
yeah, we'll see
Oh,
you.
Ephraim Winslow is asking, where is it streamable? I had to rent it on Amazon. I don't know if you I don't know if
I
you
have
had
it
to
on
do.
Blu-ray,
Oh,
so I
okay.
don't remember
Yeah,
where.
that's lucky. That's great. I should
Yeah,
find.
it's. I mean, hey, it's a movie worth getting on Blu-ray for sure.
I might have to. I might have to run out and find that. Honestly, that's it. I would rewatch that.
If you're the kind of person like me who sometimes buys movies on physical media before even watching them for the first time, 310 to Yuma, you're not going to go wrong there. So,
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, $4 on Amazon, totally worth it. Absolutely.
I googled it. It seems like it might be on Netflix, maybe, but I don't have. No, it says it's not available to watch in my country anyway. But I don't have Netflix, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, just rent it on Amazon, I guess.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, I also I started watching over this weekend. I watched the first two episodes of Widow's Bay, and I don't know how it's gonna keep going, but I didn't hate it. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was pretty interesting. A little. It feels very much like it almost feels like Gravity Falls. Did you ever watch that show?
No.
It almost feels a little bit like that. It's like a horror movie premise of the week kind of show, which is
Okay.
interesting. But it does feel like they're gonna try to tie it all together in a way. So I don't know how all the pieces are gonna fit. I'm curious, but I'm intrigued enough and I
Interesting.
liked it enough to say that it's worth checking. At least the first two episodes are worth checking out so far.
I haven't seen a ton of people talking about it, but
It got
the
something
few
like
people.
19 Emmy nominations.
Oh wow.
Like
I
silently becoming
Cleaning
more
up.
like better cleaning up, better reviewed than Yellowstone somehow.
Interesting. It's
Well, because
interesting.
Yellowstone kind of sucks. But anyway,
Well, what I've heard about Widow's Bay is that it's good from like a really diverse group of people. I'll give you an example, or two examples. So I've heard two people talking about how good Widow's Bay is. One of them was Matt Walsh, right-wing
really,
conservative commentator guy, talking about how he thought Widow's Bay was really good. And then also a very, very left-wing looking barista at a coffee shop I was at a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, huh, if they
that's
both really
interesting.
like it, that's interesting to me. And the premise or the horror comedy sort of thing, I like that sort of thing. So I'll check it out. You said it's on Apple TV, right?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, I guess that's it. So
Yep.
thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time, friendos.
Yep. Have
Stay
a good
safe
one.
out there. Bye
Goodbye now.
bye.
I think we got that that last